Chapter 141. On the third day after the duel club was held, Hermione dragged Ryan to this classroom, wanting to compete with Ryan. However, Ryan only used 2 spells from beginning to end to make Hermione realize the gap between herself and Ryan, Magic Shield and Vine Entanglement. First, he used a magic shield to withstand Hermione's indiscriminate bombardment, and then used vines to control Hermione. The little girl got to know him. Nowadays, Hermione only controls some weak spells. Even if powerful spells such as disintegration and blasting spells can be released, there is still a certain failure rate. And the most important thing is that the little girl doesn't seem to know anything about black magic. The duel failed, and Hermione was so angry that she ignored Ryan for 2 days. But the little girl quickly came running to find Ryan. "Ryan, what are your plans for Christmas?" Hermione ran over and asked curiously. Ryan looked at the crucible in front of him, stirring it from time to time, and replied, "Collect the bill." "Hey? Does anyone owe you money?" "Yes, and it's a huge sum of money." "Well, you have to take it back quickly." Hermione nodded and said with concern. Ryan thought about the diary in his pocket. He had to quickly go to the Malfoy family to sell it for a good price, so as to save him a lot of nightmares. "My parents said they would take me skiing this time, to a ski resort I don't know where." Hermione sat on the chair next to the console and watched Ryan meticulously preparing the potion, with an indescribable look in his eyes. "Serious men are the most handsome." This sentence suddenly flashed through Hermione's mind, and the little girl blushed immediately. "Hermione." Just as Hermione was blushing, Ryan had finished preparing the potion and put it into the potion bottle. "Hey!" The little girl came back from her random thoughts and looked at Ryan curiously. "Want to give it a try?" Ryan pointed at the pile of materials he had left and said with a smile. Hermione didn't refuse. She knew that even if she refused, Ryan would forcefully ask her to refine it. She knew that this was Ryan's way of training her again. After all, the people are his, so what does it matter if he uses a little more material? Hermione thought with a blush, and then started to get started with the materials. Because Ryan refined the alchemy item to prevent the basilisk, Hermione's safety was guaranteed, so the refining room on the 5th floor was restarted. During this time, Ryan and Hermione have been refining potions here, and the quality of the potions refined by Hermione has now reached the point where they can be sold. Cuckoo! Pace flew into the classroom, dropped a small bag, and flew away again. This was the one that Ryan sent to the shop in Diagon Alley to sell after Hermione successfully refined the potion last time. But at this moment, Hermione is still refining the potion, so let's talk to her later. Ryan put the small bag aside and began to point out Hermione's mistakes in the refining process. "How's it going?" Hermione held up the potion bottle in her hand and held it in front of Ryan like a treasure. "It's still a little short of that, but you can go show it to the Weasley brothers, maybe you can get your money back," Ryan said cogently. Hermione thought for a moment and nodded in frustration. Those potions that can be sold have requirements for the purity of the potion. It does not mean that it can be sold as long as it is successfully refined. "Okay, don't think about those things, look at this." Ryan took the money bag and handed it to Hermione's hand. "This is..." "Yes, this is the potion you refined last time. It has been successfully sold. This is your reward." Hermione smiled happily, holding the little cloth bag tightly with both hands. Now she is also a little wizard who can make money. Hermione thought. "By the way, let me give you the money for the last material first." Hermione still didn't want to owe Ryan anything, otherwise she would always feel like something had not been done. "Don't be anxious yet. This is the first money you have ever earned in your life. Why not think about buying something meaningful as a souvenir? You know, these potions are insignificant to me who owns a magic plant garden. And you already owe so much, so an extra sum is nothing. This is something worth remembering." Ryan continued to follow the guidance. "But this is also true. The first money in life must be carefully planned. After all, it is of great significance." Hermione thought for a while and had to admit that what Ryan said made sense. Although reason tells him that it is best to pay back the money, people are always emotional. "Okay, it's getting late. Let's go back and rest early. We still have to catch the train tomorrow." Ryan stroked Hermione's hair and said dotingly, "By the way, have you packed your luggage?" "Of course, I have a plan." Hermione nodded. She had packed all her luggage yesterday. In fact, there is nothing to take care of. After all, you still need to go to school after the Christmas vacation, so you have spare clothes and toiletries at home. Okay, good night. Good night. The two walked to the stairs together and separated. One goes up and one goes down. Bifur was talking to Wana in the Slytherin common room. There was no little wizard in the common room at this moment. Everyone knew that there was a half-day train to take tomorrow, so they went to bed early. Ryan and Beaver nodded, which was considered a greeting. Beaver must not want to be disturbed at this moment. There are not many opportunities to be alone. The next day, Ryan got up very early. I don't know why, but this kind of holiday always makes Ryan excited. Ryan! Kes shouted excitedly. Are you two planning to go home? Ryan looked at the suitcases beside them and asked curiously. No, we plan to go out to see the legendary stone forest this vacation. I heard it's safe there and you can take risks there. If we want to see the world, we have to go out and give it a try, right? Ryan looked at Kes and Beaver, as if they were looking at two tool men. He felt that after some time, the lost stone forest could harvest again. What about you, Ryan? Let's go home. It's freezing and snowy outside, and it looks very cold. Why not stay by the fireplace, listen to the sound of burning wood, and slowly read a book? Of course, pudding would make a hearty dinner, but this guy wouldn't say that. Well, I really envy you. When we go back, we will probably just go to a Christmas banquet held by a certain family. Damn it, why do we have a Christmas banquet on Christmas? Even if there is no Christmas party, I don't want to go back. It's not interesting at all. Hey, brother, I agree with what you said. The two looked at each other and smiled, picked up the milk glasses, clinked them with each other, and drank them all in one gulp. Chapter 142. It was noon, and Hermione and Ryan were walking to Hogsmeade Station. There was light snow falling in the sky, and the whole land was white. I thought my parents would take me abroad to play, but who knew that an investor had invested in a small ski resort in the countryside where my grandparents lived. It happened to open recently and gave a lot of coupons to nearby residents, so I'm going back this Christmas. It's not that I don't want to go back to the countryside, but this is different from what I thought at the beginning. It's a bit disappointing. Hermione lowered her head, looked at the ground carefully, walked forward slowly, and kept complaining about the Grangers. That's not bad. At least I can ski. I've never skied in my life. Ryan walked beside Hermione, watching the crowds of people spreading into the distance on this blue stone path. Hermione was silent for a moment, and then said angrily, "How about you spend Christmas at my house this time?" Ryan was a little surprised and turned to look at Hermione. But Hermione had already buried her little head in the large scarf, so that no one could see her expression. However, you can guess from the exposed red ear that the little girl must be feeling very uneasy at this moment. Hermione could clearly hear her own heartbeat thumping, thumping at this moment. The little girl was blaming herself for being shameless for taking Ryan back for Christmas, and for a while she was thinking about taking Ryan back there. Seeing the scene, Hermione couldn't help but grin when she thought of her parents' surprised looks. For a moment, she was worried that Ryan would reject her, and she couldn't help but frown. Ryan thought for a while and finally decided to reject Hermione. The two of them were too young now, and he also wanted to visit Malfoy Manor. Sorry, Hermione, I've planned this Christmas vacation a long time ago, and I really can't spare any time. How about next Christmas? Ryan said, paused, and I'm afraid that your father will take it with you. That pistol of his hunted me, and although I am a wizard, I will still die if I am shot. When Hermione heard the first half of what he said, she almost burst into tears, but the second half of what Ryan said made Hermione burst into laughter. My father doesn't know that. Hermione rubbed her eyes, sniffed her nose, and said to Ryan with a smile. That's not necessarily true. To be honest, if my daughter dares to bring a boy home when she is 13 years old in the future, I swear, I will break that boy's legs. Ryan said to Hermione seriously. That's not the case. Hermione rolled her eyes at Ryan. While talking, the two arrived at the station. The station is still so small and has not changed at all in a year. The little wizards were playing with each other at the station, and some were helping their friends pass their suitcases. The little wizards are finally going home, of course they are happy. One is to stay away from the uncaught murderer in the castle, and the other is to have a holiday. Who doesn't like a vacation? Who doesn't like a vacation without homework? After handing the tickets in their hands to the ticket inspector, Ryan and Hermione walked onto the train and found a compartment to sit down. There are still many empty compartments in the car at the moment, but they will probably be gone soon. Many little wizards chose to go home this year, and everyone was worried about being petrified in the castle. After the clock on the platform struck 11, the train began to run slowly on the tracks. "Would you like lunch?" Ryan asked with a smile as he looked at the station that was slowly retreating. Hogwarts prepares lunch for the little wizards. A large sandwich per person and a glass of juice are enough for the little wizards to have a full lunch. Hermione shook her head, she wasn't very hungry at the moment. The weather outside became even worse, the sky began to become gloomy, and the snowflakes began to gradually grow larger. Even with the sound of the train whistle in my ears, I could still hear the whistling wind outside, and a pattern began to form on the windows due to the temperature difference between inside and outside. Layer of white fog. Hermione noticed this and began to draw various pictures on the glass with her fingers. After a while, there were many more patterns on the windows, such as Santa Claus, elk, lions, cats, dogs, and so on. Hermione, who couldn't reach the upper part of the window while sitting, stood up and wanted to continue painting. But Ryan pushed her onto the seat, then tapped the window with his finger. The original picture seemed to come alive and began to run towards the upper half of the glass. Eventually, the upper and lower pieces of glass seemed to be interchanged. "Every time I look at it, I think it's really magical," Hermione exclaimed as she lay on the table, looking sideways at the window. "Magic, it's indeed magical." Ryan also sighed. "By the way, this year's Christmas gift." Ryan took out a beautifully wrapped box from his pocket. "Why don't you wait until tomorrow and give it to me?" "I'll give it to you now, I think you can't wait." "Then let me see what it is." Hermione opened the box and found a magic book inside. The First Curse. Hermione read, "Wait, Ryan, this is..." "Hermione, I think you must also dabble in dark magic, otherwise you will suffer in the future. As for the Ministry of Magic's ban, that is even more fart. As long as you don't show your dark magic in public, the Ministry of Magic will not. I will mind my own business. This is just the lowest level of black magic, nothing like that. Low-level black magic will not change a person's mind, and high-level black magic can also resist its side effects." Hermione hesitated and nodded. Recently, she feels that her progress in learning advanced magic is getting slower and slower. Now it is good to see black magic, maybe she can draw parallels. In fact, this is indeed the case. Although magic spells such as falling apart are taught in schools and appear to be white magic, in fact they also need to be driven by hatred. But because it does not distort people's will, it is temporarily classified as a white magic sequence. After Hermione got the book, she put it away. But Ryan saw her absent-minded look and said, "Hermione, if you want to read it, take it out and read it." "But, won't this leave you cold?" Ryan smiled brightly, but Hermione kicked Ryan shyly. "Okay, you read a book, I just want to take a nap." However, the two ate their lunch before reading and going to bed. The house elf's cooking skills are still very good, even if the sandwich is cold, it is still delicious. After eating and drinking, Ryan took out a blanket from the box, lay down on the seat and fell asleep. Hermione on the other side read a book for a while, and continued to doze off under the urging of her biological clock, and finally fell asleep on the table. Chapter 143. After returning home, Ryan was not in a hurry to go to Malfoy Manor. Instead, he rested at home for a while and enjoyed the service of pudding for a few days before operating to Wiltshire, the seat of the Malfoy family. Ryan stood under a tree and looked at the manor standing on the top of the mountain in the distance, showing a satisfied smile. The richer the Malfoy family was, the more he could extract. Tightening the cloak around him, Ryan trudged towards the mountain with 1 foot deep and 1 foot shallow. "Sir, may I ask why you come to the Malfoy family?" When Ryan reached the path at the foot of the mountain, an elf suddenly appeared, bowed to Ryan, and asked respectfully. "Hello, I am a friend of Master Malfoy. I am from Slytherin House. I am here to see him today." While speaking, Ryan also showed the emblem of Slytherin. The unique magic fluctuations on the school emblem made the house elf in front of him believe Ryan's words, and his attitude became more respectful than before. After all, Slytherins are all pure blood. It's not like it angers the little wizard in front of it. If Ryan even raises his mouth, it will be beaten. The elf couldn't help but shudder as he thought of the miserable condition of the house elf named Bibi. "Please follow me," Sir. The elf bowed respectfully and made a gesture of invitation in front of him, and then kept bending to lead the way. Ryan followed behind, and from the foot of the mountain to the top of the mountain, there was no conversation between the person and the elf. This is also a normal thing. Pure-blood wizards despise house elves as an inferior and despicable race, but at the same time they cannot do without house elves and need their service at all times. They are both responsible and established. They are the ones I am talking about. Please wait a moment, I will go and inform Master Malfoy. The house elf bowed again and then disappeared in front of Ryan. This is a huge room with furniture such as sofas and coffee tables. It seems to be a place to receive guests. There was also a cup of steaming black tea on the coffee table, and Ryan didn't hesitate to pick it up and drink it. There is nothing more comfortable than drinking a cup of hot black tea in the freezing cold. Of course, there are still precautions that should be taken. Before drinking tea, Ryan released a poison resistance on himself to increase his poison resistance. After a while, there was a mess of footsteps outside the room. Who is coming at this moment? Goyle? Crabbe? Or Pansy Parkinson, right? No, didn't the glass just say it was a boy? Malfoy's voice came closer and closer until he pushed open the door. Why the hell are you mudblood? Why are you here? You're just ruining the Malfoy family carpet. Glass. Damn, filthy thing, where did you die? Why did you bring this bedbug like you here? The moment he saw Ryan, Malfoy's face instantly twisted and he began to yell and curse. Ryan looked at Malfoy with a smile, but he was thinking about how much mental damage compensation would be appropriate later. However, Malfoy's scoldings became more and more unpleasant. Finally, Ryan snapped his fingers and told Malfoy to shut up. You are not allowed to hurt the little master. Glass, the elf who took Ryan up the mountain, appeared in front of Ryan and shouted. Then its figure disappeared, but soon, more than 10 house elves appeared in front of Ryan. At the same time, a sharp sound began to sound above the Malfoy family. This is an alarm for foreign invasion. In just an instant, Malfoy Manor entered a fully armed state. Every floor was faintly flashing with the light of magic. All the snowflakes floating in the sky were blocked by an invisible light curtain. The stone statues that usually stood in the corridors were blocked. The armors also started to move now, blocking the corridor. Several wizards in black robes immediately came out and came to the door of the reception room. What happened? The black-robed wizard in the middle said. It was him. He was the one who attacked Master Malfoy and deceived Zizi into letting Zizi bring him up. Zizi immediately fell to the ground, with a trace of fear in his sharp voice. Malfoy also ran over, pointed at his mouth, and then pointed at Ryan. Constantly saying ahoy. Let me see, it's really weird magic. The black-robed wizard murmured. After studying for a while, he turned his head and looked at Ryan. Boy, why don't you undo the spell quickly and plead guilty? You came to Malfoy Manor and rewarded the heir of the Malfoy family. Who gave you the courage? Perhaps you can ask him who is responsible. Ryan said with a smile, not feeling the least bit afraid that he was being besieged. Oh, by the way, forget that Master Malfoy can't speak now. Ryan snapped his fingers and released the spell on Malfoy. Uncle Corbulo, he was the one who attacked me. And he is the only mudblood in Slytherin. This is simply a stain on Slytherin. And he also dared to come to Malfoy Manor and stain Malfoy's family. Noble, truly unforgivable. I understand, Master Malfoy, I will handle all this, you go back first. Corbulo patted Malfoy on the shoulder and asked him to hide behind. You guys, protect Master Malfoy and if he gets hurt, you all have to pay for it. Corbulo said the words in an understatement that made all the house elves turn pale. The elves immediately surrounded Malfoy and ran back. Then let's talk about compensation for the Malfoy family. Corbulo looked at Ryan and said. Sir Corbulo, wouldn't it be unfair to just listen to Master Malfoy's side of the story? Oh, Master Malfoy is a pure-blood noble. How could he talk nonsense like you mudbloods? Ryan frowned and decided to add 10 more magic crystals when he reported the debt to Lucius later. Hurry up and hand over your wand, otherwise don't blame us for being too harsh. Corbulo continued. However, this is also in line with Ryan's wishes. After all, only with strong fists can one dominate the negotiation. It seems like you don't give up. Corbulo sneered when he saw that Ryan hadn't moved for a long time. Do it. With an order, the black-robed wizards behind Corbulo immediately took out their wands and pointed them at Ryan. Split into pieces, thunderbolt explosion, marrow extraction and bone refining. The light of the curse instantly illuminated the open space in front of Ryan. Chapter 144. Armor Protection, Magic Shield, Prismatic Reflection and Psychic Protection. Ryan instantly released 4 protective spells. A set of invisible armor was put on Ryan. A blue light curtain blocked Ryan. Several silver-white mirrors were rotating around Ryan. A purple ribbon was in Ryan's mind. Lights up. Most of the magic released by the black-robed wizards shattered the prism and reached the second layer of magic shield, but a small part was reflected back and hit one of the black-robed wizards, and the wand in that man's hand came out. The remaining spell didn't even break the magic shield in front of Ryan, it just made the shield lighter in color. Boss, I think this guy is about ready for such a big battle. How will we explain to Master Malfoy then? A black-robed wizard next to him said to Cobulo. What else can you say? Just say that someone provoked the Malfoy family and dared to hurt the heir of the Malfoy family. This statement means that he was killed on the spot. The Ministry of Magic and Dumbledore have nothing to say. Besides, this is the chassis of the Malfoy family is behind us. Cobulo glanced at the wizard and said calmly. However, he still looked at the white fog in front of him and felt a little uneasy. The explosion caused by their magic spell hitting the magic shield just now blew up the snow on the ground into white mist, making it difficult for people to see Ryan's movements clearly. Ah, by the way, Zico, it's really funny that your wand was knocked away by a little wizard. The black-robed wizard hit a wall at Cobulo, and turned around to laugh at him who just picked it up from the ground. Zico picked up his wand. Hell, if I hit you, your wand will definitely fly out. Zico roared with a red face. Having his wand knocked away by a young wizard really made him a little embarrassed and angry. He knew that he would be laughed at for several years because of this incident. Zico, don't say any more. If you don't want us to tell anyone, remember to invite us to have a drink at the Leaky Cauldron. Yeah, I heard Tom's got another batch of good wine. The black-robed wizards were very confident in the spells they released, and were already chatting on the spot. That's enough, shut up. Cobulo shouted, and the uneasiness in his heart was getting stronger now. Thank you so much for giving me the time to prepare. A voice came from the mist, the extreme cold field. Dark blue ice began to spread from the fog along the ground at an extremely fast speed. Run quickly, the glass will teleport me to the back. Cobulo instinctively noticed that something was not normal about the blue ice on the ground. Glass appeared next to Cobulo and Xik, holding a person in one hand and disappearing directly. The house elves also began to appear in an instant to take people away, but there was also a wizard who was relatively close to Ryan and whose reaction was a bit slow and was touched by the ice. The ice began to spread along the webs of his feet until his entire body was frozen in place. Burning flames, divided into pieces, disappeared without a trace. However, neither the flames nor the disappearing spell could cause any damage to the thin layer of ice on the ground. Hurry up and stop that layer of ice. This is Malfoy Manor. If the whole manor becomes like that, you all can go dig potatoes in Siberia. Malfoy's roaring voice came from the backyard, leaving Ryan speechless. Okay, Master Malfoy, please wait a moment. These black-robed wizards are just family wizards recruited by the Malfoy family. Some are from small wizarding families or simply from broken wizarding families, and some are mixed-blood wizards. As for Muggle wizards, there are none here. Even if there was, he would definitely leave angrily under Malfoy's words. The fog quickly dissipated, revealing Ryan's true body. The attack from the black-robed wizards came again. This time, all the incoming spells were replaced by black magic. Ryan raised his hand, and a half-meter-thick earth wall rose up to resist the incoming curse. Then with a flash, he came in front of the black-robed wizards. The black-robed wizards obviously did not expect that someone could teleport in the Malfoy Manor where the anti-apparition spell was deployed. When Ryan suddenly appeared, no one could react. Void Blast. An explosion suddenly occurred in the void, and invisible ripples continued to spread along the space. Strange black cracks suddenly appeared around the black-robed wizards. One of the black-robed wizards didn't check for a moment, and accidentally touched the black crack with his arm. In an instant, his arm was cut smoothly. Stay away from that black crack! Cobulo shouted in horror, not daring to make any move for a while. There are too many black cracks, and if you move at will, you will end up with a part of your body being cut off like before, so you have to stand still. Cobulo believed that Ryan in front of him would not dare to kill him. Otherwise, as long as these cracks hit his neck, the only thing waiting for him would be death, and there would be no need to bother restricting his space of movement. Okay, you win, tell me, what do you want? Kobulo kept his figure and asked with a sigh. They were defeated. Several adult wizards were beaten so hard against a child that they didn't even have the energy to fight back. Glass, go kill him for me. Malfoy's voice came. Glass did not hesitate, it knew that these things were happening now, and if nothing was done, death would be waiting for it. If he kills the troublesome little wizard in front of him now, he might still have a chance of survival. It is intelligent and does not want to die. Spatial disorder. Glass wanted to come behind Ryan through apparition, but Ryan directly disrupted the space in front of him. If the glass is lucky, it may come out somewhere in the world. If you have bad luck, it can only be death. If your luck is even worse, you will have no choice but to wander in the turbulent flow of space for the rest of your life. Stop it all! Stop it all! Lucius had never been so tired as he was today, not even under Voldemort. While attending to official duties at the Ministry of Magic, he suddenly discovered that the alarm in his manor had gone off. He dropped the paperwork and pen in his hand, and without even taking a breath, he apparat directly from the Ministry of Magic to the foot of his mountain. For the first time, he hated the fact that the anti-apparition spell at home was so large. After arriving at the door of the manor, Lucius saw the glass disappearing into the air. He also noticed something abnormal in that space. And Ryan's appearance also made him feel something was wrong. The two sides had settled their grievances before, but now Ryan came to the door again. His first reaction was whether his son had provoked Ryan at Hogwarts again. Chapter 145. Dad! Malfoy called out the moment he saw Lucius. Master Malfoy! These are the wizards in black robes, but due to the existence of the Black Gap, they cannot salute. Extremely cold realm. The ice quickly spread to several black-robed wizards who dared not move, and their eyes widened with a hint of disbelief. Mr. Lucius, long time no see. Ryan looked at Lucius with a smile. Lucius was frightened by Ryan's actions. He had never seen anyone dare to kill him in front of him. But now someone has done it, but he dare not move. His wife and son are all here. Mr. Zell, it should be clear between us. Why are you here today? Lucius looked at the destroyed houses around him, suppressed his anger in his heart, and asked through gritted teeth. Mr. Lucius, is this the way the Malfoy family treats guests? Ryan asked instead of answering Lucius's question. Humph! Lucius snorted, but did not refuse. He walked forward, preparing to take Ryan to the living room. Dad! Malfoy tugged at Lucius's clothes. Lucius turned his head and glanced at Malfoy, who was like a quail behind him, and then glanced at the high-spirited Ryan standing in front of him, and was furious. Why don't you bugs take the young master to the back quickly? If there is any damage, I will skin you. This is what Lucius said to the house elves. After speaking, he seemed to have changed a different person and continued to lead Ryan to a reception room. The two of them didn't say anything about the black-robed wizards during the whole process. Lucius thought these people were dead, while Ryan was thinking about how to get the maximum benefit. Come, try this cup of tea. This is picked from a tea tree that already possesses magical power. It only lasts a little bit a year. If the Malfoy family wasn't a little powerful, they wouldn't be able to get this tea. Lucius personally made a cup of tea for Ryan. This was also meant to scare Ryan, as the power of the Malfoy family was beyond Ryan's imagination. Mr. Malfoy, thank you for your hospitality. Ryan picked up the cup and took a sip slowly. It's really good. After taking a sip of hot tea, I feel that my whole body is much smoother, my mind is clearer, and the flow of magic power in my body seems to be less blocked. Good stuff. Ryan couldn't help but sigh. This is a big family. We keep good things to ourselves, and no one outside even knows about it. Mr. Lucius, I'm here to ask you a question. Ryan put down the cup. Although this tea is good, to be honest, what comes next is the bulk. What's the problem? Lucius asked, resisting the urge to kill the little wizard in front of him with a death curse. Do you know about Horcruxes? How did you know? Lucius was a little surprised. According to his investigation, the young wizard in front of him was just a muggle wizard. How did he know about Horcruxes? Don't worry about how I know, I'm asking you now if you know, Mr. Lucius. Okay, let me know a little bit. Lucius was a little strange, not knowing what kind of medicine Ryan was selling in the gourd, but he still agreed. Such things as Horcruxes have corresponding inheritance in pure-blood families, even in Hogwarts. Then who do you think is most likely to make Horcruxes in recent years? Ryan asked in a persuasive way. Lucius swallowed. Of course he knew who it was, but he couldn't say. It seems you know, Mr. Lucius. Do you think the thing that person gave you could be a Horcrux? Reen said with a smile, and after speaking, he picked up the teacup on the coffee table and took a sip of tea. The tea was still cold. After taking a sip, Ryan smashed his mouth and took another sip. Impossible! Lucius shouted. He couldn't believe that the diary was a Horcrux, but he believed it. He thought of Voldemort's serious look when he handed the diary to him, and he thought of Voldemort's madness in pursuing black magic. Reason told him that the diary was probably a Horcrux. That's the truth, Lord Lucius. Ryan took out the diary, opened it and wrote hello on it. The remnant spirit of Voldemort in the diary is full of questions. What happened to this man and is he here again? Little Voldemort closed his eyes this time, smashed the jar and replied hello. Bang! The diary was closed forcefully again. I knew that this little wizard was sick, but why did the house outside look so familiar just now? Voldemort's remnant soul thought. How is it, Mr. Lucius, do you believe it now? Lucius sat on the sofa, shivering all over. He knew that the mysterious man was not dead, and that he would return one day. He also knew that the item worthy of Voldemort's treasure was a wonderful dark magic item. But he didn't expect that the diary was Voldemort's Horcrux, nor did he expect that the Horcrux would be revived. What he didn't expect the most was that this kid would get it. Tell me how much you want. Lucius looked at Ryan sitting in front of him and asked this question very smoothly, smooth enough to make him feel heartbroken. He knew that he was going to bleed again today. I heard that there are several ancient alchemical items stored in the Malfoy family's treasure house. I wonder if I have the honor to see them. How do you know? Lucius looked at Ryan in surprise. It wasn't that he wasn't calm, but that the alchemy items passed down by the Malfoy family were tightly covered, and no news was exposed. Damn it! Lucius suddenly remembered the house elf he had given away with his own hands. There has never been an example of a house elf being given away to someone else in the wizarding world, and naturally there will be no leaks of house elf secrets. Lucius had thought that house elves would uphold the elf's beliefs and keep secrets, but he didn't know that house elves would always only be loyal to their current master. This is not acceptable. There is no discussion at all. You must know that although I am the head of the Malfoy family, there are some elders in the family, and they also have the right to speak. The last time I set aside a plantation for you, my voice in the family has dropped to another level. Lucius said a little tiredly. He now wished he could use a time turner to go back in time and change the diary. But no, it would have been okay if he didn't know that the diary in Ryan's hand was a Horcrux, but now that he knew it, it wouldn't have worked. Just tell me a sincere price. I don't want to argue with you anymore. Lucius felt a little tired. The Malfoy family's collection of books, as well as the black-robed wizards outside, each has 10 magic crystals. In addition, Master Malfoy called me a mudblood several times before, and this also includes 3 sky star grasses. Chapter 146. This is impossible! Lucius shouted instantly. First of all, the first family book collection is impossible. These are the ancestors of the Malfoy family who worked hard outside to accumulate so many books. Now that he had given it all to an outsider without saying a word, the clan elders would definitely complain about Lucius. Magic crystal is easy to say. There are still a lot of reserves of magic crystals in the magic world, but these veins have always been controlled by pure-blood families, and not even a scrap will be left for wild wizards. Lucius could take out 3 sky star grasses even if he gritted his teeth. This is the main medicine used to prepare blessing elixirs and high-level magic recovery potions. It is very precious. But to the head of the Malfoy family, it was nothing. The price is too high, I can't possibly offer so much. The last incident has already caused the clan elders. You've already spoken about this, Mr. Lucius. But we're talking about this business, aren't we? Let's change the conditions. At worst, you can tell Dumbledore and the Ministry of Magic. At least they won't be so greedy. Lucius took a sip of tea and said calmly. Mr. Lucius, as the school director, should know about the recent strange things happening in Hogwarts, right? Have heard a little bit. Forget it, let me tell you directly. The remnant soul of Voldemort is causing trouble in the castle now, and Horcruxes can actually share consciousness with each other. But you are lucky, I handled it in time, and Mr. Voldemort is still alive for the time being. I didn't know the diary was here. Haha, I don't believe you will let the mysterious man make trouble in the castle, and there is Dumbledore there. Lucius actually already believed it in his heart. He used to be a high-ranking member of the Death Eaters and knew a lot of information, including the basilisk. In addition, Voldemort is a Parselmouth, and the symptoms of those young wizards are also like those caused by being petrified by a basilisk. The only uncertain thing is that the basilisk's eyes are lethal, but currently these little wizards are only petrified and not dead. Okay, Mr. Lucius, please give me an answer. Wouldn't it be better to temporarily close the anti-replication spell in the library? You also know that the copying spell is very fast. This is impossible, these are. Think about your son, think about your wife. When Voldemort returns, do you know how much pain you will suffer because of this incident? Touch your arm. If you don't think about yourself, you have to think about your family, right? Besides, you won't lose anything. Those books are still there, I just made a copy. Let's change the conditions. This thing is impossible. Lucius actually wanted to agree a long time ago, but unfortunately, the Malfoy family library will test everyone who enters the library. If there was no Malfoy blood, an alarm would be raised. If no one turns off the alarm within 5 minutes, the entire Malfoy manor will be blown up. Moreover, the bloodline detection array is linked to the entire Malfoy family's array. Unless the entire family's array is closed, the bloodline detection array cannot be closed. If the family circle is closed, doesn't it mean that the Malfoy family is standing naked on the street? Then there's no need to talk, Mr. Lucius. I'll take my leave now. I'm still anxious to go back to school to discuss business with Mr. Voldemort. Ryan took a sip of tea, then put down the cup and prepared to walk out. Just wait a minute, young people just don't have the patience. Lucius was a little anxious. He had been under Voldemort's command for a long time, but he knew who Voldemort was. He was a cruel, crazy person, and an out-and-out lunatic. I can give it to you, but you can't enter the Malfoy family library. I think you understand why. Lucius sighed. As the patriarch of the Malfoy family, it really shouldn't be helping outsiders to plot things belonging to the Malfoy family. But Lucius quickly buried this guilt deep in his heart. No matter what his family was, for the sake of his wife and children, was this a big deal? A week later, in the same place as last time, I will give you the book and things together. A happy transaction, Mr. Lucius. I'm sure Master Malfoy will be very happy to hear the news. Ryan left Malfoy Manor happily, and before leaving, he also lifted the ice on the Black Robe Wizard's body. It was still snowing outside, and the bad weather did not affect Ryan's mood at all. Now he already owns the book collections of 2 major pureblood families, and it may not be impossible to obtain the book collections of all families in the future. Ryan came to the foot of the mountain alone. The elves of the Malfoy family were trembling as they stood in front of Lucius and were being scolded. However, Lucius did not execute glass. The Malfoy family lost 3 house elves last year, which was a huge fortune. Ryan apparat to his home, and Pudding jumped out in a hurry. Master, welcome home. The hot water is ready, and there is dinner. Tonight we will have grilled red sausage, steak, and salad. After dinner, we will have chocolate cake for dessert. By the way, today Miss Granger went to the library and took away 2 books. Pudding took Ryan's cloak and used magic to dry the wet cloak while explaining to Ryan what happened today. Didn't Hermione go back to her hometown? Yes, Pudding went to pick her up. Pudding said respectfully, he knew that Miss Granger would be his mistress in the future if nothing went wrong. Ryan nodded, indicating that he understood, and then walked to the bathroom. Pudding filled a bathtub full of hot water, and thoughtfully cast a heat preservation spell on the bathtub to prevent the heat from the hot water from escaping. After Ryan took a comfortable bath, he went to enjoy dinner made of Pudding. Master, this is your letter. Pudding suddenly appeared at the table, placed a white envelope on the table, and then disappeared silently again. Whose letter is it from? Ryan murmured, putting down the knife and fork in his hand and picking up the letter. It was from Hermione. After opening the letter, it said that Hermione was skiing at the ski resort today. She also picked out a few interesting things in life and told them to Ryan. By the way, she also told Ryan about borrowing 2 books. In fact, it is the most common form of small notes for men and women in love, except that it is a letter and has a little more to write. Men and women in love can really talk about trivial matters for a long time. Hayes was currently hiding in his owl house eating a pudding dinner. Since Hermione returned home, he had to fly longer distances. Fortunately, the two of them did not communicate frequently. Chapter 147. A week later, Pudding was helping Ryan prepare his luggage. Every piece of clothing was folded by Pudding without any wrinkles before it was put into Ryan's suitcase. In addition, Pudding also prepared a lot of snacks and drinks, leaving Ryan to drink them on the train. Hermione had returned to London a few days ago, and the enthusiastic Grangers invited Ryan to have dinner and agreed on a time to go to the station together. At this time, Ryan was conducting business with Lucius Malfoy in the house outside Hogwarts. "This is what you want?" Lucius' face was sallow, and the two dark circles under his eyes were particularly obvious. Lucius has been using the copying spell in the library this week without stopping at all. He didn't even dare to give orders to the house elves, for fear of spreading some news. Pudding was the precedent, and he didn't dare to gamble. "Thank you for your hard work, Lord Lucius." Ryan picked up the box on the ground and lifted it to the table on the side. After opening it, there are books inside that are only the size of a pinky fingernail. This box is cast with a traceless stretching spell, so that everything inside will look small from the outside. Ryan randomly took out more than 100 books that he had read in the Hogwarts library, opened them, and compared them with his memory. There was no mistake. It seemed that Lucius was not being clever. However, Ryan has not completely let down his guard against the books in front of him. Who knows if Lucius will delete a few words from a certain book? You can't practice it anymore, but it's still feasible to use it as a reference. There are dozens of transparent magic crystals placed in the corner of the box, and there are also 3 small jade boxes with a faint golden light shining on them. You can tell at a glance that they were expensive to make. That is a blocking spell that can keep the medicinal properties of the medicinal materials from being lost. "Have a good deal, Mr. Lucius," Ryan said with a smile after quickly checking the goods, and then he took out an iron box from his pocket, with 3 or 4 blocking spells cast on it. The magic in the entire wizarding world is vast, and who knows what weird magic Voldemort knows, so for the sake of insurance, Ryan specially added 2 or 3 more spells to prevent Voldemort from slipping out. Lucius took the iron box and glanced at Ryan. The protective spells on the box were all from the Book of All Laws. There were no such spells in this world, so Lucius felt unable to do anything when he got it, and finally had to take a look at Ryan. "Ah, I'm sorry, Lord Lucius. You know, this is just a small measure, after all, it is here." "But the Dark Lord," Ryan said with a smile, his tone indescribably flirtatious. Lucius reluctantly handed the box back to Ryan, glanced at Ryan, and secretly sighed that newborn calves are not afraid of tigers. But then Lucius began to sigh again. Now that Ryan was only in his 2nd year and had such strength, it was natural not to take him seriously. When Ryan grows up, won't his strength be? Maybe you should invest some money in him. Lucius suddenly thought. The Malfoy family has stood tall in the wizarding world for so long, relying on their ability to adapt to the changing circumstances. A powerful wizard will eventually die. No matter how powerful a family is, it is impossible to dominate all families all the time. At this time, the importance of taking sides becomes clear. In the original book, why the Malfoy family was exempted from liquidation after Voldemort's death. Isn't it because they were on the right side in the end? "Lord Lucius, I have lifted the protective spell above, can you guarantee your safety?" Ryan looked at Lucius and said. "After all, such easy to squeeze money is rare, so you have to cherish it." Although the answer is that the Malfoy family has been passed down for so many years, and they still have some skills. Ryan nodded and said no more. He just unlocked the protective spell on it and handed it to Lucius again. Lucius got it, opened the diary and made sure it was genuine, then sealed it again and released more than 10 blocking spells in one breath. "The remnant soul of Voldemort in the diary? Okay, the deal is done, I'll leave first." Ryan nodded with a strange expression on his face, and he suddenly noticed that Lucius's attitude suddenly improved. "Isn't it Stockholm Syndrome, addicted to being squeezed?" Ryan touched his head and thought involuntarily, then he was so excited that he quickly threw the terrible thought out of his mind. After the transaction was completed, Ryan returned to his cabin in the forest without stopping. Pudding stood at the door, holding his suitcase. Seeing Ryan appear in front of the door, putting raised Ryan's suitcase with both hands. It wasn't until Ryan took it that he bowed and said, "Master, have a nice trip." Ryan didn't hear it at all. After taking the suitcase, he apparate directly to Granger's house. Hermione put her wand in the box given by Ryan early in the morning to isolate the magic wave. This was informed by Ryan's letter before, otherwise the magic wave caused by the apparition would trigger the magic wave in Hermione's wand. Trace Silk, thus determining that she cast spells outside school. "Sorry, I'm late," Ryan said to the angry Hermione in front of him. Lucius had said 7 days before, so he agreed. Little did he know that today happened to be the start of the second semester. After finishing the transaction, he hurried over to Granger's house and prepared to go to the station. "Ah, everyone is here. Great, let's go." Mr. Granger walked in the door and said with a smile. He had just put Hermione's suitcase into the trunk of the car. "Okay, Uncle." Hermione made a sound from her nose. "There's really something going on this morning, Hermione," Ryan explained. "Hermione, it's not too late." Mrs. Granger also helped. "Hey!" Hermione became even more angry. But the little girl's anger went away just as quickly as it came. By the time they arrived at the station, the little girl was already talking and laughing with Ryan. After passing through the wall and arriving at platform 9 3/4, Ryan met Kes and Beaver. "Did you know that another little wizard was petrified in the castle during the Christmas holidays?" The first words that Kes said when they met made Ryan startled. "What?" Hermione was also shocked. "I heard that it was a little wizard from Hufflepuff. It has spread around now. I heard that it happened last night. You see, those parents are trying to persuade the little wizards to take a break from school this semester." Looking in the direction Bifur pointed, several parents were pulling the little wizards, hoping they could go home with them. "Fortunately, my parents didn't come with me, otherwise they would have asked me to suspend school," Hermione said. Chapter 148. A few people got on the train and sat down in a random compartment. Juana was sitting with a few friends this time and did not follow. "What's going on?" Hermione asked eagerly as soon as she sat down. Nowadays she is also on good terms with Max and Beaver. I heard that Mr. Xavier also found it when he went to the kitchen to find something to eat last night. I don't know the specific situation, but it is certain that the first person to report the crime was Mr. Potter. Kes shared his story with the big guys. The news he heard. How come someone knew about what happened in the castle so quickly? It's not just that we know it now. Last night, many young wizards received letters from their classmates who were staying at school, describing this matter in detail. Beaver took out a piece of letter paper and spread it on the table. After several people picked it up and read it one by one, they fell into silence. The injured little wizard's condition was even more serious this time. Not only was he petrified, but his body's vitality was severely reduced. Professor Dumbledore has asked Professor Snape to start developing potions to replenish his vitality, but anyone with a discerning eye can see that the potential of this young wizard may be greatly reduced after he wakes up. I really don't know who the murderer is, how vicious he is. Kes slapped the table and said angrily. I think Mr. Potter is very suspicious. First, it's Slytherin's unique Parseltongue, and then its petrification. I specifically checked the information and found that it's petrified, and it's a snake. The only one who can petrify is the basilisk. Planted. And if you calculate it, the lifespan of the basilisk is also very long. Some predictions say it can last for thousands of years. So, if the monster in the secret room is a basilisk, then Mr. Potter is most likely the murderer. Beaver sat aside and said silently. But wouldn't you die immediately if you saw the basilisk's eyes? Hermione exclaimed. According to a book in my family, if you indirectly see the eyes of a basilisk through a mirror, water, etc., you will not die directly, but will become petrified. Beaver shrugged. Children of pure-blood families always have access to knowledge that Muggle wizards cannot. Dong dong dong. Children, would you like something? The salesperson knocked on the glass door of the compartment and asked with a smile. 2 licorice magic wands, 2 boxes of BB's multi-flavor beans, thank you. Ryan took the money and handed it to the salesperson. Okay kid, this is your thing. Hermione, Chris, and Beaver each bought a little. After all, it would be really boring to just sit in a cubicle all afternoon and grind your teeth without finding something. How about it, do you want to have a big adventure? Beaver picked up the box of BB's multi-flavor beans he bought, kept throwing them up, and then caught them. Ah, of course you can. Every taste is a great adventure. Sounds good. 3 people agreed. Cherry flavor. Tangerine. Hiss. Chili flavor. Hell, what kind of chili is this? Why is it so spicy? Kes picked up the pumpkin juice next to him and drank it in a gulp. Hiss. Why is it getting hotter and hotter, and why is there no relief at all? Kes stuck out his tongue, and then kept fanning his tongue with his hands. Let me see. Beaver picked up the box of multi-flavor beans doubtfully. To make the adventure more exciting, our company has recently added new flavors: Indian Devil Chili flavor and Indian Ganges River Water flavor. Deviled pepper. Ganges water. Hermione and Ryan screamed together. Is there any problem? Beaver looked curious. It's a big problem, but let's drink an ice cream soda first. Ryan said, taking out a bottle of dark blue soda from his pocket, pouring a little into the disposable cup, and pushing it in front of Chris. Ice soda is a drink that makes people feel like they are in a world of ice and snow. It is usually used for adventure. However, Ryan didn't drink enough at the moment, so he could only freeze his mouth. Hey, it's much better. I thought I was going to die. Kes breathed a sigh of relief and smacked his mouth. The devil's pepper is one of the hottest peppers in the world. Eating too much can kill people. But I don't think I put too many beans in it, so it won't be life-threatening. But the smell of Ganges water. What's wrong with the smell of Ganges river water? It says that Indian wizards like it very much. I heard that eating it can enhance your magic power. Beaver looked at Ryan curiously. He only knew that the Ganges was the holy river in India. But since it is a holy river, it must be somewhat mysterious. Ah, really? Okay, I won't go into details. Ryan was silent. Okay, let's continue. The continuation Beaver meant was the continuation of the adventure, but this time Kes poured a glass of ice cream soda with experience and put it next to it in case of emergency. Peach flavor. Ugh, it tastes like liver. This was Hermione. The little girl stuck out her tongue, frowned, and quickly drank several sips of the orange juice she brought before she recovered. Banana flavor. Spinach flavor. Hey? What a strange taste. Why have I never tasted this before? Beaver said doubtfully. Is it the least smelly of earwax? Kes became interested. No, I have tasted the smell of earwax. Isn't it the newly added smell of Ganges river water? Ryan raised his eyebrows and said in disbelief. Ugh. Hermione retched. What's wrong? Is the liver taste still lingering in your mouth? Beaver asked doubtfully while chewing the multi-flavor beans in his mouth. Hermione suppressed her laughter and waved her hands quickly. No, it's just, let's continue. Although Beaver was curious, he didn't care too much. Several people ate several rounds in a row, and then Kes and Beaver realized that something was wrong. Ryan, why are you eating all fruit-flavored food and not a single bad bean? Just when Ryan once again reported that what he was eating was peach-flavored, Kes couldn't help but speak. Bad beans are beans that taste strange. Divination, this way you will know what the beans will taste like next time. If the beans taste good, take them. If they don't taste good, change them to the next beans that taste better. Ryan's words shocked Chris and Beaver. Hell, it's just a small game and you have to use divination to cheat. You are only in the 2nd grade now, how come you know divination? Isn't that an elective course for the 3rd grade? Course selection? Can you tell me more about it? Hermione became interested. Generally speaking, elective courses are chosen based on your own interests, but I strongly recommend choosing divination. Of course, if you are born Muggles, you can also choose Muggle studies. This will save you a lot of effort during the final exam. Schools generally do not require the number of elective courses for each little wizard, so you can choose all of them, or just 2 or 3. Chapter 149. I heard that Percy Weasley took all the electives, and the professors responded well to his grades. Bill Weasley also chose all the courses and got all the certificates. To be honest, these two don't look like Weasleys at all. Especially Percy Weasley, I think he is a qualified Ravenclaw is old-fashioned. Their brother Ron Weasley doesn't fare well in comparison. I heard that Professor McGonagall has exchanged several letters with Mrs. Weasley about this matter. Chris and Beaver each said something. What about you? What classes are you going to take? Kes asked curiously. Of course I choose them all. Hermione raised her head and said proudly. This is the only thing she can be proud of in front of these pure-blood wizards. Ryan shook his head. He planned to go out for a year in 3rd grade and come back to see Voldemort after his resurrection when the Goblet of Fire was held. Ryan, aren't you going to choose a course? Hermione asked worriedly. In addition to electing courses in the 3rd grade, compulsory courses such as Charms and Transfiguration are still required, so not electing courses is actually not a big problem. I plan to go on a trip when I am in 3rd grade. My strength has now reached a bottleneck. Only more battles can make me break through. Ryan said something lightly, causing the 3 people present to immediately open their mouths. It's unbelievable, muttered Beaver. The 3 of them did not doubt Ryan's thoughts at all, because in the past year and a half, Ryan had proven his strength with actions. A plantation from the Malfoy family is still in his hands today. Just looking at this incident shows that Ryan's strength is not simple. But this is normal. Since Ryan lifted the ban on pudding not being able to cast spells on wizards, the plantation has become much safer, not to mention that Ryan has left a backup there. So you want to take a break from school? Hermione asked. The little girl lowered her head and was not very interested. Yes, after all, it is really difficult to improve one's strength in school. Hermione nodded. She had known that such a day would come, but she didn't expect that this day would come so quickly. Ah, let's play something else. Beaver said, and then Chris joined in. The 2 of them were Slytherin's living treasures before. Although they have changed their minds now, the skills they mastered before are still there. The atmosphere in the cubicle quickly returned to its original cheerfulness. By 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the 4 of them were tired. Hermione leaned on Ryan and fell asleep. Chris and Beaver also fell asleep. Ryan looked out the window at the receding bare trees. Days. At about 5 o'clock, the sun completely disappeared, and the whole world fell into darkness. The orange lights on the train began to light up, and the voices of the little wizards began to become quieter. At this time, the little wizards had been working hard all afternoon, and now they were very sleepy. However, the train was about to arrive at the station, and sleep could not last long, so the little wizards fell into a painful situation. Fortunately, the little wizards didn't suffer long before the train pulled into the station. Hermione, Hermione, we're here. Ryan pushed Hermione who was sleeping against him and said softly. Ryan, are we there yet? Hermione was dazed, holding Ryan in her arms like a big pillow. Yes, we're at the station. Let's get down there. There's a sumptuous dinner waiting for us. The little girl stood up in a daze and walked out awkwardly. Ryan was supporting Hermione beside him, and when he was leaving the compartment, he kicked Chris and Beaver to wake them up. The 2 woke up slowly from the pain, and all they saw was an empty cubicle and little wizards walking around outside the window. Hell, Ryan didn't even call us. I think he shouted. The 2 hurriedly got off the train and caught up with the last Yechi car. When the little wizards arrived in front of the castle, Professor McGonagall was already waiting at the door, but the professor's face didn't look very good. The little wizards stood in front of Professor McGonagall, and the sounds of playing gradually disappeared. Dinner is ready, welcome back. Professor McGonagall said with a straight face, then turned around and led the way. The little wizards followed Professor McGonagall forward and started talking to each other, wondering why Professor McGonagall looked so bad. In the end, the only thing that came up for discussion was what happened last night. There were already several young wizards who were staying at the school sitting in the restaurant, and the faculty seats were also filled with professors. Dumbledore sat in the middle of the staff bench, but there was an extra seat at the end of the staff bench, and an unknown person. Ryan followed the team and sat at the Slytherin table. Ryan, you are so unloyal. If I hadn't kicked that, you 2 would be on your way back to London by now. Can't you be gentler? Okay, who is that extra person on the faculty bench? Which one? The one on the far right. After Ryan and Beaver finished talking, Beaver stretched his neck, looked to the far right of the staff chair, and then retracted his neck. What the hell, Tom Lockmarch, an Auror, why is he here? What? Ryan was a little surprised. Now the Ministry of Magic has sent Aurors to station at Hogwarts? But his surprise was soon answered. Children, welcome back to this big family. First of all, I would like to introduce to you Mr. Tom Lockmarch. He is an experienced Auror. Dumbledore stood up and said to everyone. When Madge was introduced, the Auror stood up and gestured to everyone. I think everyone has heard about what happened in the castle recently, so the Ministry of Magic sent an Auror to the castle to protect your safety. After saying that, Dumbledore wanted to sit down, but when his butt was almost close to the cushion, he bounced up again. By the way, Mr. March has something to announce later. However, I think you are all hungry by now, so let's start dinner, kids. As Dumbledore finished speaking, food that was different from before appeared on the table. Roast chicken, roast goose, roast suckling pig, etc. What do you think Mr. Auror is going to announce later? Chris asked, chewing the crispy golden skin of the roasted suckling pig. Who knows, it's probably some kind of ban, after all, such a big thing happened. Ryan cut a piece of roast duck and tasted it slowly. Chapter 150. After eating and drinking, the young wizards finally cheered up and looked at the Mr. Auror sitting at the staff table. Mr. March stood up with a smile, first nodded slightly to everyone, and then began to say, when I accepted this task, I was actually a little surprised. But no matter how surprised, it can't change the fact that it has happened. Several professors have searched in the castle before, but without any results, so the results will be the same if it is me. Now the only thing we can do is prevention, so I hope that everyone will not go to remote places during normal times. Everyone should stay in the dormitory at night and do not go out at night. There will be professors responsible for night patrols. In addition, if anything goes wrong, please fire the red flare as soon as possible. The professors and I will rush to the scene as soon as possible. Past. The little wizards listened to Madge's words and breathed a sigh of relief in their hearts. They thought Madge was going to issue some bans. Of course, it is best for everyone to travel in groups of 3 or more. In addition, please ask the prefect to be responsible for everyone's outings. If someone is missing and no one knows his whereabouts, please report it to the dean of each college immediately. After saying that, Mr. March smiled at everyone and sat down again. Okay, kids, you're feeling tired after an afternoon's drive. Go back to bed. The little wizards, led by their respective superiors, walked out from the gate one by one. However, there was no one within at least 1 meter around Harry. Even when he passed through the restaurant door, the little wizards asked him to go through first, and then they went through. Ryan was walking in the Slytherin team and suddenly heard a quarrel at the front of the team. But soon, the team turned a corner and continued to move forward. This is a completely different road than usual, more open, but also farther. When Ryan walked forward to the corner, he realized what had happened. Filch is erecting barriers at the entrances and exits of some trails with no access signs posted on them. Kess and Beaver, who were walking beside Ryan, also saw it and couldn't help but started complaining. We've been walking this trail for so many years, and there's nothing happening at all. And everyone uses that trail, so it's not a remote place. If you ask me, this corridor is a remote place. No one has ever been there. They used to take a shortcut to the Slytherin common room, but now that the shortcut is blocked, it can be said to be a blow to everyone. Especially for little wizards like Kess and Beaver who are bedridden, the blockade of shortcuts means that they have to get up a few minutes earlier every morning. This is simply a crueler punishment than being imprisoned in Azkaban. But Filch didn't care at all, and blocked all the secret paths from the basement to the 8th floor overnight, so that when the little wizards woke up the next morning, everyone washed their eyes several times, thinking that they had seen it wrong. Damn it, has Filch lost his mind? Why is this place closed? A little Gryffindor lion stood in a corridor, looking at the obstacles in front of him and the slogans on them, jumping up and cursing. Ha ha ha, for those staff members who criticize Hogwarts behind your back, I think you should come with me to Professor McGonagall's office. Filch's voice sounded behind the little wizard, and then he pulled the little wizard toward Professor McGonagall's office, leaving wailing sounds all the way. The entire castle, except for the main road and a few stairs, was all boarded up by Filch. Who dares to go out at night now, fearing that he will bump into the professor on night watch if he goes out? During breakfast, Kess sat at the dining table and looked at the listless expressions of the Gryffindor little lions, and said with a smile. Ah, yes, Professor McGonagall must also agree with Filch's approach, so that they will restrain themselves and read books carefully. Beaver also said with a smile. Slytherin and Gryffindor have always been at odds with each other. Although Beaver and Kess will be more polite to Hermione because of their relationship with Ryan, they are only polite to Hermione. They still have the same attitude towards the other little lions. Now seeing their old enemy listless, the little snakes were naturally very happy. The first class today was Defense Against the Dark Arts. After breakfast, Ryan and Hermione came to the classroom together. Ah, now these guys should have nowhere to vent their energy. Hermione sat down and picked up Lockhart's book Wandering with Werewolves to read through. Tell me, are these experiences of Professor Lockhart true? I see that every plot in this book is intertwined, and these spells seem to be able to be released, especially this humanoid restoration spell. After flipping through the book for a while, Hermione spread it out and pointed to a passage in the book for Ryan to read. Ah, of course it's true, and I can't see any flaws. But having said that, Lockhart's strength is really bad, which makes people wonder whether these books are fake. But think about it, if Lockhart's book is fake, wouldn't so many wizards in the wizarding world not be able to tell it? So, Lockhart's book cannot be fake, so there is only one possibility, that is, these experiences are others experienced it, and he wrote about it. Ryan sat aside and said silently. And didn't I tell you about my friend Favo? He had a friend who lost his memory after meeting Lockhart, and then Lockhart published a book traveling with vampires. And it just so happened that the thing is, what Mr. Drum is most proud of after losing his memory is that he once fought vampires. So what you're saying is... No, isn't this fraud? Hermione looked a little angry. But even so, it will be difficult to go far in the magical world without strength, so Lockhart won't be able to dance for long. Ryan thought for a while and warned Hermione not to ruin Lao Deng's plan. Don't worry about this matter. Professor Dumbledore has his own plan. You mean, Professor Dumbledore knows that Lockhart is a parallel importer? Hermione couldn't believe it. But, what is his plan? This is a year for the little wizards. 5th grade and 7th grade students in the 1st grade still have exams. Ryan had a headache, and in the end he could only refuse with the excuse that he didn't need you to worry about. While talking, Lockhart walked in. Today's class was still the same drama performance as before, except that the leading actor was changed. Lockhart glanced at Harry and the empty tables and chairs around him, and finally decided to change a young wizard to perform with him. It's up to you, Neville Longbottom. Chapter 151. The little wizards watched a lesson with their hands on their heads. Lockhart beat Longbottom violently, yawned, stood up and walked out when the bell came. Get out of class is over. But the little wizards stood at the door and were at a loss. It was just a class this morning. If it were normal, the little wizards would have gone into the corridor to have fun by now. But now, when I turned around and looked around, I saw that the corridor was blocked by wooden boards. Oh, God, that's terrible. Ron sighed, holding his forehead. Let's go back to the dormitory. Harry shook his head. Looking at this look, he knew that he wouldn't be able to play today. Most of the Gryffindor little lions had this intention, and they walked upstairs in a dejected line. Filch sealed most of the corridors, and seemed to seal away their energies as well. Hermione explained to her roommates to prevent the prefects from asking about her whereabouts, but no one knew about her whereabouts and notified the professor, so she took Ryan to the library. Lockhart assigned a homework at the end of the class. Find out Lockhart's 4 most exquisite operations in the episode performed in today's class, and write a 1-foot-long paper. There seemed to be more than double the number of little wizards in the library today than usual. The little wizards were sitting with their friends. Books were spread out on the table, but few people were looking at them. They all gathered around and whispered. Mrs. Pants walked around in the library angrily, but unfortunately every time she was about to reach the little wizards knew she was coming as if they had eyes behind their backs, and started to pretend to read the book. You'd better not let me catch you. Mrs. Pants angrily walked past several witches who were reading with a feather duster in hand. But Mrs. Pants changed her smile when she saw Hermione and Ryan. She had a good impression of the 2 wizards in front of her. Although they occasionally talked to each other, at least they really came to learn and loved books. Madame Pants nodded to Hermione and Ryan, then went back to her rounds. Hermione nodded similarly. The little girl did not dare to speak in front of Mrs. Pants. Sitting in the same position where she had been sitting before, Hermione put the books one by one from her bag onto the table, piling them into a high pile. Other professors only use 1 or 2 books in class. They never use 7 or 8 books in every class like Defense Against the Dark Arts, because no one knows what Lockhart will perform in this class. Hufflepuff and Slytherin were okay, but Ravenclaw and Gryffindor were miserable. They had to carry 7 or 8 books up and down every class. Hermione opened the book and carefully read the passage about today's class performance. She quickly found a few small details that met Lockhart's requirements. Then she picked up the parchment and started writing swish, 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 from time to time. I also found a few books nearby for reference. Ryan didn't even need to read, all the books were in his mind, and he could recall them with just a little thought. The two of them completed their homework quickly. The 1-foot paper is actually very simple. The words are larger, the line spacing is larger, and the left and right spaces are larger. It is both beautiful and requires less writing. It kills 2 birds with 1 stone. After finishing their homework, the two of them sat in the library and read books. It was probably almost lunchtime before they walked to the restaurant. The restaurant was extremely busy today, and most of the corridors were blocked, leaving little wizards no place to play. The dormitory is not suitable for joking, as you will feel bad if you break things. Joking in the library is even more forbidden, unless you want to never enter the library in your life, nor is it allowed in the classroom, where the professor is watching. In the end, after much deliberation, this restaurant was the most suitable. Ryan opened the door and saw Malfoy and Harry confronting each other, with their respective followers waving flags and shouting behind them. "What's going on?" Ryan found Dax and asked. The last time they dueled in the club, both of them won and lost. Just now Weasley accused Malfoy of taking action earlier last time, and then Goyle and Crabbe also accused Potter of taking action earlier. Then the two sides got into a quarrel, and the result is now this is it. Kes stared at the changes on the field while telling Ryan the ins and outs of the incident. Although the words from both sides were very fierce, no one wanted to fire the first shot. No one wants to bear the consequences of creating friction. After about 5 minutes, the little wizards probably saw that both parties had no intention of taking action, so they returned to their seats in low spirits, waiting for lunch to arrive. "Ah, it's so boring. Why are all the corridors sealed?" Kes said in a bored tone while lying on the table. Because the corridors were closed, the classroom occupied by the small group formed by Curse and Beaver was also unable to go. "By the way, Kes, I don't know the name of your organization yet," Ryan asked curiously. "Didn't Beaver say that?" Kes looked confused. "I thought you said that." Beaver's voice sounded from behind. "Hell, you haven't even said a word to Ryan about such an important thing." Beaver slapped Kes on the shoulder and squeezed it hard. "I thought you said, hey. Go a little to the left. Your technique is pretty good. You can open a massage parlor when you retire, and you're guaranteed to make galleons." "Okay, Ryan, our organization is called the Mutual Aid Association." "Well, why don't you feel very domineering?" Ryan asked. "That is to say, I feel the same way. But Beaver said that we need to develop in a low-key manner, so we chose such a name. But now that I think about it, it does fit our situation. Everyone helps each other." "Yes," I said. "Okay, don't worry about this anymore, lunch is here." Perhaps because the little wizards had nowhere to vent their energy today, the food today was quite chewy. The snacks after the meal were also an eye-opener for Ryan. Beef jerky dried into purple red, dried fruits, and the most classic French bread sticks. These snacks are distributed to everyone in bags one by one, appearing directly in front of the corresponding little wizard's dinner plate. "Is this really edible?" Kes pinched the yellow breadstick curiously. Bang! Beaver took the breadstick and smashed it on the table, but the bread didn't crack at all, it just fell into pieces. "Obviously, I don't think so," Beaver said with a smile. "What the hell, what's the point of the school sending this out?" Brick Carlo sat across from Chris. "Maybe I think you have bad teeth, and I want you to grind your teeth," Ryan said from the side. On the other side of the Gryffindor table, the Weasley twins were already fighting each other with breadsticks, like knights dueling in the Middle Ages. Chapter 152. The afternoon classes were Herbology and History of Magic, one class with Ravenclaw and one class with Hufflepuff. After waking up from a long sleep, Ryan brought his dragon skin gloves and textbooks to the fourth herb room. This was the first time for the little wizards to enter the fourth greenhouse. Before, I had only entered the third greenhouse to repot the mandrake. "Okay, kids." Professor Sprout walked in cheerfully, the smile on his face couldn't stop. The students did not answer, but stared blankly behind Professor Sprout, where stood a person whom no one could have imagined, Mr. Auror Tomlock March. "Oh, look at me. I forgot to introduce you. Tomlock is a Hufflepuff. Now that he is free, he will come and see me." "Ha ha ha, okay, kids, let's pay attention. Put your efforts into the classroom. After all, a good grade can always give you extra points when you are looking for a job after graduation. Professor Sprout said with a smile, his plain tone full of show-off. But this is also normal. Every teacher hopes that his students will be able to stand out in the future, and then come back to see him on a free afternoon, and he happens to have another class. That way, you can proudly say, as long as you study hard, you can also achieve success like your seniors. Professor Sprout also said this, which really left a bad taste in the mouths of the little wizards. Okay, Tang Looky, I have to go to class. I will talk to you after class. Professor Sprout turned to Mr. March and said. Then she turned her head and said to the little wizards, now calm down, today I want to show you black silver grass. Who can introduce black silver grass? Soon, a Ravenclaw girl raised her white and tender hand. Ravenclaw has always been good at this kind of thing. Miss Scavan, let me tell you. Black silver grass is named after its black leaves and silver leaf edges. The leaf edges of black silver grass are serrated and extremely sharp, and can scratch people's hands without protective gear. At the same time, black silver grass, the toxin of silver grass enters the body along with the wound, and the mature black silver grass can easily kill an adult wizard. That's very true. 5 points for Ravenclaw. Professor Sprout glanced at Scawang with appreciation. Scawan glanced at Ryan proudly, leaving Ryan speechless for a while. This Scavan is the little witch who took a boat with Ryan at the beginning of school. Okay, children, relax. What we need to take care of today are only the seedlings of black silver grass. The poison is not very strong. But I warn you, don't underestimate the black silver grass, otherwise you will suffer a lot. First put on dragon leather gloves, then use a shovel to make a small hole outside the root of the black silver grass, then fill it with some dragon fertilizer, cover it with soil, and finally water it. Be careful to water it thoroughly. Professor Sprout said as he demonstrated it to the little wizards. Do you see clearly? Professor Sprout looked at the little wizards next to him and asked kindly. The little wizards nodded, even if some of them didn't understand it yet. Okay, it's a very simple operation. It's all in the specific book. I'll be watching you from the side, so let's get started, kids. Black silver grass can not only be used to prepare poisons, but can also be used to prepare antidotes, so both black and white wizards need it, so the price on the market has always been very high, about 3 cents per plant. The little wizards all wore dragon leather gloves honestly, even Malfoy, who was usually carefree. He picked up the small shovel, shoveled it gently, and then opened the bag with dragon fertilizer next to it. Ugh! An indescribable sour smell filled the air, filling the entire greenhouse. Even if the little wizards pinch their noses, they can still feel the smell. What's even more uncomfortable is that the gas seems to sting your eyes. Ryan raised his hand with difficulty and released an air-freshening spell around himself. Ryan had never thought that breathing in fresh air could be so wonderful. Hell, I don't think Professor Quirrell's garlic smell is unacceptable. A young wizard said with difficulty. I think so too. The little wizard said more easily, because there were 2 nasal congestion in his nose. Where did you get that stuffy nose? I brought it with me. I asked about it at noon. Dragon fertilizer will be used in this class, so I prepared these nose plugs. So you won't tell me? Ha ha ha, don't worry, isn't this prepared for you? With that said, the little wizard took out another pair of nose plugs from his pocket. Is there any more? Asked a young wizard next to him. Yes, I have prepared a pair for each of you. Haha, thank you. It was obvious that the little wizards in Slytherin were scheming. At least at this moment, the little wizards in Slytherin and Ravenclaw all remembered the good things about that little wizard. In order to conceal that he had cast a spell, Ryan also went to get a pair. When the little wizards put in fertilizer, they obviously moved a little faster, which caused Professor Sprout to always frown and criticize severely, you put in a little too much fertilizer. Yours is a little short. You need to spread the fertilizer with your hands and press it down to make it more compact. The little wizards almost froze. After finally getting through the herbal medicine class, the little wizards rushed out of the 4th greenhouse and breathed in the air outside. After taking a breath, the little wizards looked at each other, ran back to their dormitories, took a shower, changed their clothes, and then ran to the classroom for the next class. In the History of Magic classroom, the little Hufflepuff wizards were already sitting and waiting. The little snakes ran into the classroom just after the school bell. The little snakes with wet hair immediately attracted the attention of the little badgers, so after Professor Binns finished calling the names, the notes began to fly. Then, the little wizards of Hufflepuff also learned about the magical dragon fertilizer in the herbology class, and they also looked forward to the next class. After satisfying their curiosity, the little badgers fell asleep with satisfaction in the sound of Professor Binns' teaching. The little snakes had just taken a bath, and with Professor Binns' hypnosis, if it hadn't been for the notes from the little badgers, they might have fallen asleep long ago. After one class, the little wizards got up and rushed to the restaurant. However, the scene inside the restaurant makes every little wizard who pushes in the door curious. Most people were lying on the table with their cheeks covered, looking listless. A few people were still holding a purple-red beef jerky and biting it hard. Chapter 153. Ah! I'm about to die. Beaver said in a loud voice. Why are you about to die? Ryan sat at the dining table and poured himself a glass of lemonade. The sour and sweet taste refreshed Ryan, who had just woken up from his sleep, and he suddenly woke up. What a boring day. Why did that bastard Filch seal the corridors so completely? I'm so bored. Beaver said, rubbing his cheek. What does this have to do with you dying? After Ryan finished speaking, he took a sip of lemonade, frowned, and swallowed it. In the boring afternoon, we had nothing to do. Even if we were reading, we always had to bite something in our mouths. Then we thought of those jerky breads distributed at school at noon. Having said this, Beaver got up from the table, looked at Ryan and said, but to be honest, the more you chew the jerky, the more flavorful it becomes. The more flavorful it is, the more you want to chew it. You can't stop at all. Then our cheeks are so sore and we haven't eaten much dried meat yet. This may be our ration for this school year. Ryan turned his head and looked at the little wizards, each one rubbing his little face. Haha, I agree, this jerky is really good. Kes said vaguely with a stick of jerky in his mouth. He sat down next to Beaver, took off the dried meat in his mouth and continued, I chewed it all afternoon and finally ate one. This is the second one. Merlin, why did you let me? I came across something so delicious. Wait a minute. Beaver looked a little unbelievable. You said you already ate one in the afternoon and this is the second one? You didn't lie to me. Beaver's eyes widened, he put his hands on the table and leaned a little towards Chris. Yeah, I lied to you and I didn't get a Galena. Kes said matter-of-factly. But doesn't your tooth hurt? Beaver asked as he rubbed his face. Hearing Kes say that this was his second tooth, Beaver felt that his tooth hurt even more. It hurts, but it doesn't matter. I went to Madame Pomfrey and asked for a potion and it was cured. Wait a minute, the medicine is so effective. Did Professor Snape make it? Beaver swallowed, feeling that his outlook on life had been overturned. Yes, although it tastes a bit unpleasant, isn't it worth it to eat such delicious food earlier? And after drinking the potion and experiencing the bad taste, eating this dried meat will feel better. Kes stuffed the dried meat into his mouth again, then took out 3 potions from his pocket and placed them on the table, and said, how about you try it too? I got more from Madame Pomfrey. A few bottles of potions. Ah, forget it, I don't dare to experience this bad taste. I'd rather have a toothache. Okay, okay. Kes looked a little disappointed. He really wanted his friend to try this wonderful feeling. By the way, Ryan, have you tasted it? Kes asked Ryan again. It was obvious that Kes wanted to find a like-minded friend in this regard. Sorry, I had a day of classes and I haven't had time yet. Ryan shook his hand. The dried beef could almost be used as a dagger. His teeth had already fallen out once. If he eats his teeth, they will collapse. I can only drink potion. I'm so envious that I can attend class for one day. Beaver said, covering his mouth. Beaver, who are you? You are definitely not Beaver. There is no way Beaver is going to class so actively. Now it was X's turn to be surprised. Not that bastard Filch, but Merlin, I think his mind is a mess. Mr. March made it very clear that day not to go to remote places, but why did he seal off all other places? Ever since his cat was petrified, he has become so neurotic and crazy. I think Professor Dumbledore should expel him. His existence has seriously affected the teaching of Hogwarts. And it's not just me, everyone thinks so. The ghosts and portraits also think so. And I also heard that the ghosts are planning to join forces with Peeves to make a big move this time. Bifur said the last words in a low voice. What big move? Kes asked casually. I don't know, but it should be big. Is it as bad as the time when you two set off explosive bombs? Ryan came over and asked in a mean tone. Kes pretended to hit Ryan, but Beaver looked serious. Maybe it will be bigger than that time. Hiss. Kes took a deep breath, showed a bitter smile, and said, I think it's better to listen to my family and take a semester off. Don't be afraid, my friend, victory is ahead. I guess the ghosts will contact the little wizards soon, especially Greyfinder. Beaver patted X on the shoulder and said with a smile. The three of them were talking and laughing, and food suddenly appeared on the golden plate in front of them. It was dinner time. I feel really uncomfortable, I'm so hungry, and my brain tells me that the food in front of me is extremely delicious. But the problem is, my teeth hurt. Beaver said weakly. Today's dinner is a piece of tender and delicious steak, drizzled with black pepper sauce, which makes it even more attractive under the candlelight. Ryan and Kes continued to fork steaks onto their plates, and the food was very delicious, but Biff looked on with bitterness. In fact, most of the little wizards could only cover their faces and watch the people around them feasting. How about you try it? Kes couldn't stand being looked at by Beaver, so he took out the 3 bottles of potion, looked at Beaver and asked. Hell, give me a bottle, Kex, I can't help it. A young wizard next to him shouted, then took a bottle of potion from Kes's hand and left. The other little wizards also had some thoughts, but soon, this idea disappeared in an instant. The little wizard who took the potion drank it as soon as he got the potion and was lying on the dining table rolling his eyes. 5 minutes later, the little wizard, who kept twitching and rolling his eyes, resurrected on the spot. Haha, it really doesn't hurt at all. This medicine really works. As he spoke, he forked a piece of steak onto his dinner plate. But it was obvious that he single-handedly dissuaded the other young wizards from taking the potion. Beaver also smiled and refused. He didn't want to twitch, roll his eyes, and foam at the mouth in front of Wana, which was like an epileptic seizure. The little wizards were even more resentful. They hated the murderer and Mr. March who suggested it, but they hated Filch even more. The reason is simple. Neither the murderer nor Mr. March can be defeated. Chapter 154. The boring life continues, and the little wizards slowly become numb from the initial anger. We can't go on like this, Albus. The students are listless in class now. Although they have restrained themselves a lot now and are not naughty anymore, I am really afraid that something will go wrong if this continues. In the principal's room on the 8th floor, Professor McGonagall was sitting at Dumbledore's desk and said with worry on his face. That's true, but Filch's measures still have some effect. No little wizard has been killed these days, and Pomona's mandrake is about to mature. After this semester is over, we can use the summer vacation to enable the castle's magic scan to search, and then we can find out everything. Dumbledore told lies without blinking an eye. In fact, he now understood that Voldemort was behind these things. But we can't continue like this, Albus, they are still students. We can't continue to be so suppressed. This is extremely detrimental to their physical and mental development. Ah, in that case. How about asking Mr. Auror to reopen the dueling club? The wizards we train will have to face these things in the future. Even if they work in Diagon Alley, more dueling knowledge will always be needed. It can't be wrong. That's all I can do, I'll post the announcement. Professor McGonagall nodded, sighed, turned, and left the principal's office. Dumbledore sat behind the table, looking at the door that automatically closed with his blue eyes, wondering what he was thinking. Professor McGonagall began to work on this matter after returning to her office, first asking Madge for her opinion. Of course there is no problem. In fact, there are some differences between the knowledge taught in schools and its practical application. March agreed immediately. He felt that this was an opportunity to establish a good relationship with the little wizards. Because of Filch's tricks, March found that the little wizards now began to dislike him. Thank you, Madge, so I'm going to post the announcement. How do you like this Saturday? Okay, I'm free anytime. As for the classroom, it will be arranged in the same classroom as last time, okay? Of course, I can't ask for it. In this case, I will go back and think about what to teach. Professor, you know, some things are really not suitable for young wizards. Professor McGonagall, who once worked in the Ministry of Magic, knew what March was talking about. Aurors often faced all the most vicious dark wizards, so they would have more or less fatal skills. These certainly cannot be taught to young wizards. March stood up, bowed slightly to the professor who had entrusted him with his care, then opened the door and prepared to leave Professor McGonagall's office. Bang! A red flare exploded over Hogwarts, attracting the attention of countless young wizards. Flag flare? Where did it come from? Professor McGonagall was watching Madge leave, but saw the flare the moment Madge opened the door, and immediately stood up and asked. Marge didn't hesitate and said immediately, "It looks like it's on the 6th floor. I'll go there first, Professor McGonagall." After finishing speaking, he rushed out regardless of Professor McGonagall's answer. Along the way, the little wizards were all rushing to the 6th floor. A pebble had finally been thrown out of their ordinary life. They all wanted to see the excitement. Madge was squeezed into the crowd. Since most of the corridors were closed, the little wizards could only squeeze into a limited number of corridors, which greatly slowed Madge's speed. "Sorry, gentlemen and ladies, could you please give way? I am Tomlock March. I need to go to the scene to take a look at the situation." March was afraid that the voices of the little wizards around him would be too noisy, so he specially used the loud voice spell. The little wizards glanced at Madge and consciously moved out of the way. Although they hated Madge and wanted to watch the fun, their top priority was to let Mr. Auror go to the scene to investigate in order to find the murderer. Madge thanked the little wizards around him and ran upstairs. Before the little wizards could close up, Professor McGonagall ran up behind them. The little wizards looked at each other and ran up after Professor McGonagall even more enthusiastically. In a corner on the 6th floor, Neville Longbottom was huddled in the corner and sobbing continuously. Seamus Finnegan was sitting on the ground with his eyes blank, his wand tightly held in his hand. Lying in front of them was by Justin Finch-Fletchley. Justin was grey and white, lying on the ground stiffly, his chest did not rise and fall, and he looked dead. What happened here? After March arrived at the scene, he immediately saw Justin lying on the ground, but fortunately, there were two witnesses this time. Seamus heard the sound and immediately raised his wand and pointed it at Madge. March's wand also slipped into his hand, but he quickly put it away. He just acted subconsciously, and this action had saved him several times. "Okay, kid, don't be afraid, tell me what happened here." Professor McGonagall quickly rushed over. She touched Seamus' head and said. Seamus saw Professor McGonagall and lowered his wand. At this moment, Professor Dumbledore also arrived. "Child, can you tell us what happened?" Dumbledore asked. Dumbledore's appearance gave Seamus a little courage. He pursed his lips and said in a slightly trembling voice, We are here to prepare to contact the magicians. Because we need to take the final exam, so Neville and I were walking in front, and suddenly we heard a noise from behind, and we saw this." "Is that so? Did you see anything else?" Dumbledore pulled Seamus up from the ground and asked kindly. Seamus shook his head in frustration. On the other side, Neville was also pulled up by Professor McGonagall. Professor McGonagall dusted Neville's body and wiped the tears and snot from Neville's face with his handkerchief. "It's a snake. I saw it. It has scales on it. It must be a snake," Neville suddenly shouted. The professors looked at each other, and Dumbledore made a decision in his mind. "Quickly give up. You are all so blocked, don't you know you should leave some space for the patient to breathe fresh air?" Madame Pomfrey's irritable voice sounded. She suffered a lot from running from the 2nd floor to the 6th floor. The young wizards quickly cleared the way for Madame Pomfrey, allowing her to enter. "How's it going, Poppy?" Dumbledore asked. "Fortunately, it's just petrified and not life-threatening." After a brief inspection, Madame Pomfrey used a floating spell to take Justin down. Chapter 155. "Okay, let's all disperse," Professor McGonagall said coldly with a straight face. "It's really annoying. The heir of Slytherin seems to be unhappy with Gryffindor and keeps targeting this Gryffindor." Naturally, Professor McGonagall, the head of Gryffindor, didn't have a good face. "Relax, Minerva, at least now we know what is harming the little wizards in school." Dumbledore pushed up his half-moon glasses. "By the way, I haven't asked who it is yet. Here's the flare that was released." It's me, the headmaster." Neville was about to cry. I know I shouldn't cast the spell in the corridor, but... Take it easy, kid. You did a great job this time, so I decided to give Gryffindor 10 points. Dumbledore's words made Neville's eyes widen. "Okay, you two should go to the dormitory and rest for a while." Professor McGonagall still had a straight face, but the slightly raised corners of her mouth showed that her mood at this time was not as bad as it appeared. In fact, Professor McGonagall just felt like she was in a mess at the moment. Justin was petrified and should have been sad. But she saw a child who should have been weak become brave and strong, and she was sincerely happy for the child. It seems that the duel club matters need to be postponed, Tom Roach. Professor McGonagall glanced at Madge apologetically. It's okay, I think I need to go back to the ministry to check the information and see if there are any snakes that can cause petrification. Madge said, suddenly paused. What's wrong, have you discovered anything new? Professor McGonagall asked curiously, seeing Madge's hesitation. March raised his head, looked at Professor McGonagall, then at Dumbledore, and finally spoke, I heard that Mr. Potter showed his talent for Parseltongue in the previous duel stage. Are you doubting Harry? Professor McGonagall couldn't help shouting. Ton Roach, there is absolutely no way Harry is the murderer. Dumbledore spoke from the side, in fact, I probably know who it is. But this matter is a secret, don't worry, I have my own plan for all this. Albus, it's not that I don't believe you, but... I know, please believe me. Professor McGonagall was stunned for a long time, and finally nodded, okay. After saying that, he left here with a livid face. Dumbledore looked at Professor McGonagall's leaving figure and was speechless for a long time. After guessing that it might be Voldemort, he had the idea of using this incident as an experience for Harry. Professor, I will go back to the ministry first. Marge said respectfully. Dumbledore nodded. In the evening, after Ryan and Hermione came out of the library, they went back to their respective colleges. Just as he opened the door to the Slytherin common room, before Ryan could step in, he was stopped by Senior Gemma. Sorry, Ryan, Professor Snape asked the prefects to count where the young wizards were when the petrification incident occurred this afternoon. Library, Mrs. Pants can prove it for me. While having dinner, Ryan found out what happened. Senior Gemma wrote on the parchment in her hand for a while, then got out of her way. After Ryan entered, she blocked the door again and continued to stop the next little wizard to register. I heard that in the afternoon, Longbottom said in front of everyone that a snake attacked Finch Fletchley. Everyone is guessing now. Seeing Ryan sitting down, Kes said. So my guess is absolutely correct. Mr. Potter is controlling the basilisk to kill people in the castle. But this is just my guess, not the truth. Please don't spread it casually. Beaver also said quietly to the side. He didn't want what he said to be known to others until there was definite evidence. Destiny is always unpredictable. If he guesses correctly, it will be the icing on the cake for him, if he guesses wrong, it will be a rumor, which is a blow to him as one of the leaders of the Mutual Aid Association. Chris nodded and made an okay gesture with his hand. Ryan also patted Beaver on the shoulder and said that he would not tell anyone. Afterwards, Ryan walked directly to his dormitory. At this time, investigations are being carried out simultaneously in the 4 major colleges. Most of the young wizards can basically tell what they were doing at the time and can find witnesses. But there are also many little wizards who can't tell, and Gryffindor is the worst among them. Tell me, what on earth did you do this afternoon? The Gryffindor prefect was a little crazy, because in front of him stood a row of little wizards who couldn't tell where they were this afternoon. Don't think too much, he must have violated the school rules. It is foreseeable that the gems in the jar representing Gryffindor points will be missing a lot again. Say it, even if it violates the school rules, you have to say it, otherwise Professor McGonagall will come to ask in person tomorrow. The prefect said a little discouraged. I went to the leftmost corridor on the 3rd floor. I kept a few hard-drawn fireworks there. But I felt it was not safe to leave them there, so I wanted to take them back. The prefect nodded expressionlessly and looked at the next wizard. I went to the prefect's bathroom. I just wanted to see what it was like inside. I will also be a prefect in the future. The little wizard blushed. The prefect patted his shoulder to express encouragement, then looked at the next little wizard, and instantly felt a headache. Fred Weasley, George Weasley. Okay, where have you two been? 2 dung bombs were thrown into Filch's office. The latest product from Zuko's joke shop. The 2 of them sang in harmony. I hope you 2 can come back alive tomorrow. The prefect wrote on the parchment and said sympathetically, then raised his head and looked at the next one. The prefect was stunned, it was another Weasley. Ron and Harry next to him had their entire faces flushed. They really couldn't tell what they had done in the afternoon. Harry wanted to get rid of the suspicion of his own murderer, so he went to Myrtle to ask about the last time the Chamber of Secrets was opened. But he didn't dare to go into the girls' bathroom alone, so he took Ron with him. But now something like this happened. Harry glanced at the little wizard behind him who was watching the fun, and felt even more reluctant to say it out loud. To put it bluntly, it is the rhythm of social death. The prefect frowned. He felt that there was a secret between the two people. What did you two do this afternoon? This is what Professor McGonagall ordered. Everyone must register. The prefect said, I said, even if it violates school rules, it's okay. The most important thing is that this can let you get rid of suspicion. However, Harry and Ron still didn't want to say anything. Chapter 156. In the end, Harry and Ron still didn't speak, so the next day, they were called to Professor McGonagall's office. At the same time, Lien, it seems that Mr. Potter is really the one who opened the Chamber of Secrets. Early in the morning, Beaver sat next to Ryan and said while eating breakfast. Ryan ignored him, chewed slowly and swallowed what was in his mouth, and then said, Why do you say that? I remember you said you wouldn't say nonsense without enough evidence. Yesterday, the prefect registered the whereabouts of the little wizards in the afternoon. Do you know this? Ryan nodded. Senior Gemma's operation of blocking the door opened his eyes. It is rare to see such a fiery character in Slytherin, which is full of aristocratic style. I heard that no matter how much Professor McGonagall pressed him, Mr. Potter just wouldn't say what he did yesterday afternoon. Beaver said quietly to Ryan. Ryan was silent for a moment. He probably knew what Harry was going to do. Perhaps Potter really has something to hide. We don't rule out this possibility, but it's very unlikely. Beaver nodded. Any possibility that exists must be taken into consideration. Reality is not fiction, anything can happen. So currently, Porter is the biggest suspect. Beaver said. While the two were talking, the little wizards around them instantly became noisy. This is a very strange thing. Slytherin snakes are always very quiet when eating, and even when they speak, they will be very quiet. Ryan glanced at Beaver in confusion. Beaver understood, and pulled over a member of the mutual aid group to ask. Bifur said a few words to the little wizard, then sat back with a strange look on his face. Looking at your expression, what happened? Ryan became even more curious. Here comes Chief Malfoy, Beaver said, glancing in Draco's direction. Ryan looked over. Draco looked indescribably majestic at this time. Goyle and Crabbe also held their heads high, squinted upwards, and looked at people with their nostrils. Headmaster Dumbledore is in trouble. Ryan said quietly, and then forked 2 more sausages from the plate in front of him. At this time, the young wizards gathered around Draco to ask what the Patriarch Malfoy's intention was today. But after 5 minutes, the young wizards were no longer interested in surrounding Draco. Because there is more exciting news, Mr. March is back, bringing with him Cornelius Fudge and 2 other wizards dressed as Aurors. All the little wizards were speculating whether the Ministry of Magic was going to take action against the heir of Slytherin and the murderous snake. However, until the end of breakfast, there was no news. The little wizards had to go to class obediently and no longer think about these things. Because the professors have already said that there will be more study time this year, so the final exam may be a bit difficult. This sentence was a double blow to the little wizards, and their already sad mood became even sadder. The classes in the morning were so wonderful that the little wizards had no intention of listening to the lectures. They were all concerned about the purpose of Patriarch Malfoy and the Minister of Magic today. The professors also had no intention of teaching because they had heard some bad rumors. In a strange atmosphere where both professors and students were absent-minded, the morning class ended just like that. However, when the little wizards happily walked into the restaurant, they discovered something was wrong. Dumbledore sat on the staff bench without joy or sadness, with Minister Fudge sitting on his right with a smile on his face, Lucius Malfoy sitting on his left with an expressionless face, and 3 Aurors standing in a row. Behind. The professors sat aside with livid faces. Filch kept mumbling and crossing his hands on his chest, trying to find a comfortable position to hold it in the place that usually belonged to Mrs. Norris. Ryan sat at the dining table and looked at the empty golden plate in the middle of the table, feeling unhappy. It was obvious that there was something big to be announced, so no food was served to allow all the little wizards to arrive. Ryan estimated that announcements such as "Gather in the dining hall for an announcement" were also posted on the bulletin board in the college common room. About 10 minutes later, the little wizards all came to the restaurant. When Fudge saw that people were almost here, he stood up impatiently, smiled and said to everyone, "Haha, classmates, good afternoon." Percy was the first to applaud, looking at Fudge with admiration. Fudge also noticed what was going on here. He was a little interested in this discerning young man, so he smiled and nodded to Percy. Percy's face turned red with joy, even redder than his red hair, and he pumped his hands even more vigorously. But fortunately, he also knew that Fudge was going to speak next, so he quickly put down his red hands. "I'm sorry to inform you that in view of the incidents of little wizards being petrified since the beginning of this school year, the Ministry of Magic has to isolate the suspects in the Chamber of Secrets case 50 years ago. Of course, he is just being quarantined, and if it is ultimately found that it is not him, the Ministry of Magic will ensure that he is released." These words caused the little wizards to start talking instantly. Of course they knew who the suspect was in the case 50 years ago. Since the secret room was opened, the little wizards began to read various information and learned that 50 years ago the incident was naturally easy. Rubeus Hagrid, the keykeeper of Hogwarts and the keeper of the Forbidden Forest. Most young wizards didn't have much discrimination against this giant hybrid. Instead, Hagrid gained the favor of many young wizards because of Hagrid's warm-heartedness. However, since Harry was suspected of being the heir of Slytherin, not many people had interacted with Hagrid. Everyone knew that he had a good relationship with Harry. The most important thing is that he is still a suspect in the accident 50 years ago. Originally they were very taboo about this. "No way!" Harry slammed the table and yelled. Ron kept pulling him beside him, trying to get him to sit down. Thanks to having a father who works in the Ministry of Magic, Ron also knows that the Ministry of Magic is not something Harry, who currently only has the title of Savior, can afford to offend. And he still refutes the face of Fudge, who has the best face, in full view of the public. "Oh, Harry." Fudge seemed not to care about Harry's attitude and greeted him cordially. "We are not saying that Hagrid is a suspect, but we are isolating him temporarily. You know, he was a suspect before, so we can only rule him out as a suspect first." Fudge walked to Harry and said. He also patted Harry's shoulder with his hand, and pressed Harry hard into the seat. Harry wanted to stand up, but Ron held him tightly. Chapter 157. Fudge winked at the three Aurors, who instantly moved their legs and walked behind Fudge. Fudge didn't look at Dumbledore's expression and just walked out with the three Aurors. "Fudge, I can guarantee that Hagrid has nothing to do with this incident." Dumbledore stood up, but his clenched hands made everyone understand that the old man was extremely angry at this moment. Fudge subconsciously took a step back, but he soon realized that he was in the dining hall of Hogwarts, where there were hundreds of young wizards. Dumbledore would not take action against the Minister of Magic in front of the young wizard. Fudge smiled because he had caught Dumbledore's weakness. Dumbledore was too disciplined, which was a good and a bad thing. Fudge walked forward slowly, until he came to Dumbledore, and said in a low voice, "I know, but the Ministry of Magic has to do something. Now everyone is a little angry about the Chamber of Secrets. And this is just one as a precaution. If Hagrid hadn't been the one, we would have sent him back. There's no use taking Hagrid away, Fudge." There was a trace of anger in Dumbledore's blue eyes, which made Fudge feel something was wrong. But after thinking about the rumors in the Ministry of Magic, he strengthened his determination, but he still decided to drag people into trouble. But the Ministry of Magic must at least do something. Hagrid's criminal record has put him in a very bad situation now. Going to the Ministry of Magic to sit for a while will help calm people's anger towards him. Fudge paused and continued, "This matter the school board also agreed." "Sorry, Dumbledore, I'm in a hurry." After saying that, Fudge held on to his hat and hurriedly left the restaurant with the three Aurors. He was afraid that Dumbledore would pick up his wand and cast a spell on him in the next second. He could still recall the scene where Dumbledore led the Order of the Phoenix to confront the Death Eaters. Lucius looked at Fudge leaving and couldn't help but curse in his heart. He had provoked Dumbledore into a rage. If he went out and said that Dumbledore should be removed from his position as principal, wouldn't he add fuel to the fire? However, the looks in the eyes of all the little wizards below put Lucius in a dilemma. In the end, he stood up, all for the sake of Malfoy's dignity. "I'm sorry to tell you that after the secret room incident, Professor Dumbledore did not take any measures to save it. He just blindly allowed it to wreak havoc in the school. Therefore, after the school board of directors has decided to remove Dumbledore, Professor Buladow's chancellorship." After Lucius stood up, he said something that shocked everyone. Although the professors had already predicted it, they were still a little stunned when they actually heard Lucius say this. As for the little wizards, the reaction was even greater. First came Gryffindor, the Weasley twins and Harry, who were already noisy, followed by Hufflepuff and Ravenclaw. But the Slytherin snakes had approval on their faces, making the other three major houses glare at them. Draco Malfoy was loudly saying things like "That's my dad" and "My dad deposed Dumbledore" to the little wizard next to him, his face full of pride. Goyle and Crabbe kept squeezing the little wizards around them, as if Malfoy was a celebrity. The little wizards around them were all ardent fans, and they were security guards. Ryan's face was full of helplessness. He felt that Hogwarts was indeed a bit unbearable. Initially, I came to Hogwarts just for its collection of books and the teachings of the professors, but now there is nothing about Hogwarts that attracts Ryan. So I'm still taking a break from school. Ryan sat in his seat and thought silently. Haha, you have seen how powerful my father is, you mudblood. Draco saw Ryan sitting in his seat with a serious face, and thought that Ryan was scared after seeing his family's power. He immediately thought of the duel at the beginning of school, how he was tricked into going home to get the magic crystal and then beaten, and how he was directly beaten up at Malfoy Manor. His mind suddenly became hot and he roared angrily. Ryan raised his head and looked at Malfoy's distorted face, feeling a little confused. Why did the children of other pure-blood families seem to be so sane, but why did they fail when they came to Draco Malfoy? An inexplicable wave emanated from Ryan's body, and everyone felt danger in their hearts instantly. This was the feeling of a rabbit when facing a tiger. Suddenly, all the little wizards found that they seemed to be unable to make sounds. They could open their mouths, but no sound could come out of their throats. Can you say what you just said again? Ryan squinted and looked at Malfoy with a smile. Malfoy was just a little stupid, but not really stupid. At this moment, he also understood that something was wrong. His mouth was trembling and he couldn't say anything. Ryan stood up, raised his hand, and prepared to give Malfoy a hard blow. He just thought about why Malfoy dared to trouble him again and again, and came to the conclusion that he didn't hit Malfoy hard enough and didn't hurt Malfoy. However, his arm was grabbed by Dumbledore. Dumbledore pulled Ryan behind him, looked at Lucius on the staff bench with blue eyes, and said in a cold voice. If the school board thinks so, I can give up my position as principal. For a moment, the little wizard's eyes widened. But the group silence spell released by Ryan still existed, so they could only open their mouths, but couldn't make a sound. But it can be seen from their open mouths that they are very excited at this time. But what I want to say is that I will only leave school when everyone here betrays me. After saying that, Dumbledore pulled Ryan out of the restaurant. The choice you made just now was not a wise one, Mr. Zell. After walking some distance, Dumbledore put down Ryan's arm and said softly. I just want him to understand one thing. We are wizards, and we don't have the aristocratic system of the Middle Ages. Strength sometimes doesn't mean everything. When your heart can't control this power, you will be troubled by it. But that doesn't mean I can allow someone to insult me over and over again, Professor Dumbledore. Ryan stared at Dumbledore and said. I know, but sometimes, maybe violence isn't the only way to solve a problem. But this is the fastest way to solve the problem, and I am sure of victory. Ryan, no one can exist independently of others. Sometimes we need to use our brains. Okay, I'll listen to you. Ryan gave up the conversation with Dumbledore. Debating has never been his strong point. Chapter 158. I heard that you plan to drop out of school in 3rd grade. Dumbledore asked when he saw Ryan fell silent. Yes. Ryan didn't hide anything, and he had nothing to hide, and the application for leave of absence still required Dumbledore's signature in the end. Planning to go out and see the world? Time. Dumbledore sighed with emotion. Ryan's high spirits reminded him of his youth. Back then, he embarked on an adventurous journey with such ambition, and also met Grindelwald Gaynut, the person he loved and hated at the same time. Sometimes, you really need to go out and know what you are missing. Dumbledore nodded. Ryan just nodded and said nothing because he was afraid that Dumbledore would start preaching mode again. And he was very curious about why Dumbledore called him out. He felt that it was definitely more than just preventing Lucius from taking action against him. Dumbledore was also thinking in his mind at this time. Not many people knew about Ryan's strength until now, but he knew that Ryan's strength was definitely not low. Therefore, Ryan's suspension of school is absolutely beneficial to his savior training plan. Without Ryan as a huge variable, Dumbledore is sure to control everything. But Dumbledore turned his head and looked at Ryan, feeling a little worried again. Let's go, I want to see your strength. If your strength is not up to par, I won't let you die in vain. The outside world is not like the trivial fights in school. There are dozens of wizards who break arms and legs every year. There are quite a few missing. Dumbledore said with a serious face. Ryan understood what Dumbledore meant. With the current level of treatment in the magic world, anyone can basically recover as long as they are not hit by a curse. Then there is only one possibility for the broken arms and legs mentioned by Dumbledore, and that is that they were all injured by black magic. And missing, to put it nicely, means missing, to put it worse, it means to be dead. Ryan just nodded, and then followed Dumbledore without saying a word. After Dumbledore received Ryan's response, he kept walking forward. The two of them walked further and further, and finally came to the oil painting on the 8th floor of a giant monster beating Barnabas with a club. When the troll in the painting saw someone coming, he immediately swung the wooden stick in his hand and hit the wizard named Barnabas. Barnabas opened his mouth suddenly, but no sound came. It must have been too loud, and the magic painting automatically blocked it. Dumbledore walked around the opposite side of the magic painting 3 times, and a door suddenly appeared on the wall. The Room of Requirement, a very magical place, said to be left by Lady Ravenclaw. Dumbledore winked at Ryan and continued, this room can be transformed into the room that the wizard desires most. For example, this time, I want a room that can be used for duels. Ryan's eyes widened. Damn it, I actually forgot about the Room of Requirement. There is a Horcrux in it. Ryan yelled in his mind. Dumbledore just thought that Ryan had never seen such a magical house before, and he was also shocked when he came there. Pulling the handle on the door, Dumbledore opened the door and prepared to walk in. Professor Dumbledore, don't you think this door looks familiar? If I remember correctly, this should be the door to the duel hall on the 1st floor. Dumbledore was silent for a moment, opened the door, looked inside twice, and then closed the door gently. Then he walked back and forth in front of the door 3 times again, and this time an old wooden door appeared. Okay, there should be no problem this time. Dumbledore said with a smile, then opened the door and walked in. After Ryan walked in, he found that the space inside was wider than he had imagined. A huge ball above his head was emitting soft light, illuminating the entire room. Surrounding the room are various protective gears, targets, rest chairs and the like, neatly arranged, but the dust on them proves that no one has been here for a long time. In the middle of the room is a huge platform with runes flashing around it. It seems to be a protective spell. A magical place, isn't it? Dumbledore asked. Ryan nodded. The moment he entered, he felt a hint of space shift, which proved that this room was not in the same space as the corridor outside, but connected the 2 spaces through the door. And judging from the dust on the tables and chairs, no one has been here for hundreds of years, but there is no sign of damage to protective gear and other items. Restoration spell? Or is there a spell about time? Ryan suddenly didn't want to go out and wander around so early. Okay, Ryan, come on. Dumbledore changed his clothes at this time. Instead of the original loose wizard robe, he was wearing a tight armor suit. His chest and waist were filled with potion bottles, and in Ryan's magic vision, Dumbledore had almost a dozen lights belonging to alchemy items on his body. Ryan swallowed. The greatest wizard of the 20th century was not Dumbledore's self-proclaimed one, but a man who was shot with real swords and guns. Then you have to be careful, Professor. Ryan decided to show some real skills, so as to see how far behind he was from the top group of wizards. Space distortion. In the eyes of Ryan and Dumbledore, each other was folded. This was just because the space between them was distorted, so the light was also distorted when it spread to this part of the space. Dumbledore's expression remained unchanged. He picked up the Elder Wand and cast 2 disarming spells. However, when the spell came into contact with the twisted space, it was instantly resolved without any ripples. Gravity comes from. Ryan once again cast a spell on himself. The function of this spell was to allow him to freely control his own gravity. Next, Ryan clapped his hands, and 3 or 4 earth thorns sprang up from Dumbledore's feet without any warning, but Dumbledore dodged them. In the first lesson, the enemy will not just stand there and wait for you to attack, so prediction is very important. Dumbledore dodged easily, and even taught Ryan in Kung Fu. Snapped. Ryan clasped his hands together even more forcefully this time. Swish, swish, swish. 20 or 30 earth thorns suddenly shot up from the ground again at a distance of 20 centimeters each. A large-scale attack can indeed be effective, but the action of your spell casting will already allow people to determine what spell you are going to cast next, especially if you have cast it once before. Dumbledore said while floating in the air. Chapter 159. Dumbledore floated in the air and cast 2 more disarming spells on Ryan. This time the disarming spell hit the armor spell released by Ryan directly from the air, knocking Ryan back 2 or 3 steps. Dumbledore smiled. He discovered that the twisted space could not move. After it was released, it could only be fixed to defend against attacks from one side. Ryan, stop testing, show some real skills. Dumbledore drew a graceful arc in the air and landed behind Ryan. Ryan looked at Dumbledore warily, knowing that Dumbledore was about to show his true strength. Split into pieces, thunderbolt explosion, quickly pull away. Dumbledore shook his wand and kept chanting curses in his mouth, and one curse after another continued to shoot out from the top of the Elder Wand. Spatial refraction. All the magic spells mysteriously disappeared the moment they arrived in front of Ryan, and then suddenly appeared on the right side of Ryan's body, hitting the protective circle raised on the dual platform, causing ripples. It's very interesting. Can the space still be opened under the suppression of the Hogwarts anti-apparition curse? Dumbledore pushed up his half-moon glasses and said happily, it's just a little bit short. What if? It would be nice to be able to refract 180 degrees. After the magic spell is emitted, it can no longer be controlled manually, which means that Ryan can return to the original path by refracting the magic spell. Professor, be careful. Ryan reminded Dumbledore, then put the Elder Wand into his pocket, and then took out a staff about 1.6 meters high. The top of the staff is a magic crystal, and Ryan also added a spike on the top of the crystal, which can be used for close combat. The body of the staff is grey and silver, which is due to the addition of unicorn blood, and Ryan also carved many runes to increase toughness, magic, and attack. The tail of the staff is also a magic crystal, echoing the crystal at the tip of the staff. Ryan held the staff and just touched it slightly to the ground, and the ground began to surge, as if it had turned into water. But Dumbledore's feet seemed to be attached to the ground. No matter how the ground surged, he remained firmly on the ground. Ryan held the staff in his right hand and pointed to the sky, and 2 or 3 blue swords exuding cold air appeared in the sky. The staff swung downwards, and the blade flew past Ryan as if it could recognize the target, and flew towards Dumbledore. Ryan raised his left hand again, and flames suddenly burst out from the ground around Dumbledore, trapping him in place. However, Dumbledore's front was not closed, and that was where the ice sword was left to attack. Flocks of birds. Dumbledore did not panic at all and summoned a flock of flying birds to collide with the flying ice sword. After the birds blocked the ice sword's flight and turned into wisps of black smoke, Dumbledore fired another split into 4 shot. The ice sword shattered, followed by another 10,000 bullets. The broken pieces of the ice sword floated again before they hit the ground. After floating to the top, they flew towards Ryan at an extremely fast speed. Ryan had no time to use the magic spell and did not dare to use the armor spell to block it. He could only remove the flames around Dumbledore and let him form a fire shield in front of him to block the incoming ice sword fragments. Burst. After resisting the fragments of the ice sword, Ryan said a word softly, and the fire shield in front of him instantly exploded into countless small flames. The grease technique, all curses are ended. The 2 voices sounded at the same time. Grease is just a trick, and although it has been improved by Ryan, it is not a system. But with so many years of magical training, Dumbledore quickly found the loopholes in the grease spell and countered it. Clear water like a spring. Dumbledore once again summoned countless amounts of water to extinguish the flames on the ground. Tens of millions of volts. A trace of electric light flashed on Ryan's wand, making bursts of pop sounds. Floating spell 2. The 2 of them lifted their feet off the ground at the same time and floated into the sky. It's too late, Professor. Ryan grinned. Ignition. The ignition technique is not even a magic trick. Anyone with a trace of magic power in the body can use it. Its effect is only to summon a flame for ignition. However, the 9 years of compulsory education have taught us that water can be electrolyzed into hydrogen and oxygen. Boom! There was a loud noise, flames shot into the sky, and the runes on the edge of the dual platform suddenly became much brighter. Hiss! With this power, the professor won't be disabled. Ryan looked at the burning flames in front of him with a layer of light blue eggshell. He felt a little worried, but he did not relax his vigilance. Muggle knowledge. A voice sounded behind Ryan, which scared Ryan and used a flash forward. Hey? Can you still move instantly? Dumbledore's eyes lit up and he said involuntarily. He could clearly feel that the school's anti-apparition spell had not been triggered, which meant that Ryan was not using apparition or a variant thereof. Okay, you are now strong enough to make a living outside. Dumbledore stopped the fighting in time. If the fight continues, the two of them will use some powerful spells. Dumbledore had never used advanced black magic such as the calendar curse. But if you say that Dumbledore doesn't know it, you won't believe it even to death. Ryan didn't use all his strength, and he didn't use evil magic like resurrection of the undead or plague infection. Moreover, he also specially practiced a set of mage's staff techniques. Combined with flickering, he can achieve the effect of always having a girl in 1 minute, and there is no need to mark it in advance. When you are out there, strength is one thing, and how you behave is another. And there are many wizards who like to deceive and kidnap. These are all dangerous. Dumbledore took Ryan out of the room of requirement and walked to the principal's office. By the way, did you refine that spear yourself? Because there was no magic wand in the magical world, Dumbledore only thought it was a spear that incorporated the functions of a wand. Professor, that is the staff. It's too long and inconvenient to carry. And it's not suitable for casting magic spells in battle, but it's still very suitable for your word spells. Most spells in the magical world are non-directional, so wizards usually use their wands to achieve a rough aim. By the way, your alchemy is very good. I have an old friend who might be interested in you. If you have time during the trip, you can go and have a look. I will write you a letter of introduction. Dumbledore said with a smile that through the battle just now, he felt that Ryan was no longer weaker than the professor at this time, and he had such a strong strength but was able to maintain his true intentions. Dumbledore felt that he had better not be too harsh, at least Ryan would not be the next Voldemort. Nicholas Flamel. Yes. Chapter 160. Let's go, I'll write you a letter of introduction and go through the suspension of study procedures for you. Dumbledore walked ahead, heading to the principal's office. Ryan followed without saying a word. Are you wondering why I'm so nice to you all of a sudden? Dumbledore said suddenly. Ryan was stunned for a moment and nodded. This is also what he is thinking about. Dumbledore not only gave him guidance, but also introduced him to Nico Flamel, and finally even applied for suspension of school himself. This was not what a principal should do. There is no free lunch in the world, and there is no pie in the sky, so Ryan is very wary of Dumbledore's actions. Don't worry, Ryan. Actually, I don't have any requirements. Ryan couldn't help but feel relieved when he heard Dumbledore's words. If you really want nothing, then this letter of introduction will be too hot to hold in your hand. More than 50 years ago, a student as talented as you was admitted to the school. He was as full of magic as you. Tom Marvolo Riddle. It seems you know it, so you also know his other identity. Voldemort. Ryan, it's good. There are too many people in the magic world today who are still afraid of the darkness he brought. They don't even dare to call his name, but you don't. That's good. The two of them were talking and walking. The portraits around the corridor were gone. They didn't know where they went. The entire 8th floor was empty. Arrive. After a while, Dumbledore took Ryan to the door of the principal's office. He waved his hand, and the stone statue guarding the door automatically moved out of the way. Ah, being a principal is always a bit of a privilege, isn't it? Dumbledore winked at Ryan and walked inside. Dumbledore, I have been looking for you for a long time. I knew you would definitely come here. But I have to tell you with regret that you have been dismissed. Because we have not elected a new principal for the time being, we will let my Vice President G.E. will temporarily act as principal. Lucius was waiting in the principal's room. As soon as he saw Dumbledore coming, he immediately came up and started talking. Letting Professor McGonagall act as the principal temporarily is completely driving a wedge between them. Okay, I understand, Lucius. You are quite busy, so you must not want to spend more time with me, an old man, right? After saying that, Dumbledore stared at Lucius with blue eyes. Of course, so I'll leave first. Lucius was so frightened by Dumbledore's stare that he placed the dismissal notice on the table with a snap, straightened his clothes and walked out. Before leaving, he smiled at Ryan. Ryan, I think what you said is right, we are wizards. Dumbledore laughed twice, sat down on the chair behind the desk in the principal's room with peace of mind, then picked up a quill and started writing on a piece of purple patterned letter paper. After a while, he inserted the quill into the inkwell and left a magical mark of his own on the letter paper to prove that the letter was indeed from his hand. Here is your application for suspension of study. Ryan took a letter and piece of paper from Dumbledore. So what is your request? Ryan held the letter and paper in his hand, rubbed them twice, and asked. Dumbledore was silent for a while and then said hesitantly, "There is something I want to ask you. You should have guessed that the changes in the castle this year were caused by Voldemort. I suspect that he has been resurrected. But the strange thing is, he didn't summon his subordinates, and I doubt he was planning something. So I would like to ask you to help me pay attention to this information when you are traveling abroad. In addition." Dumbledore tapped his fingers on the table, making a clicking sound. Ryan sat on his chair and looked at Dumbledore, waiting for his next words. "If you can in the future, please help Harry when necessary." Dumbledore spoke anyway. "I don't understand, Professor." Ryan said, "I don't understand why you are so convinced that the person in the prophecy must be Mr. Potter. Mr. Longbottom should also be in line with the prophecy." Ryan looked at Dumbledore. He didn't want to say this originally, he wanted to be confused for once, but Dumbledore asked him to help Harry, which was already acknowledging that Ryan knew his plan. "Yeah, I wasn't sure at first, so I took a gamble. Fortunately, I seemed to be right." Dumbledore took out a clear glass tube from under the table. It was full of black cockroaches crawling around wildly. Dumbledore opened the jar, took one out, and threw it into his mouth. Dumbledore bit it, and a trace of yellow liquid accidentally emerged from the corner of his mouth. "Oh, sorry, do you want some?" "Cockroach pile, this is my favorite sweet." Dumbledore seemed to notice Ryan staring at the jar, asked with a smile, and then grabbed another cockroach. "Look, with just one bite, the honey inside bursts out in your mouth. It's really wonderful." In order to demonstrate, Dumbledore brought the cockroach to his mouth, then took a bite, completely engulfing the lower body of the cockroach. Ryan could clearly see the honey pouring out from the disconnected part of the cockroach's body and the tentacles still shaking on its head. "Ah, no, I can't accept it." Ryan quickly refused. Even if he didn't see Dumbledore give a demonstration, he didn't want to eat it. What's more, Dumbledore gave such a shocking demonstration. It's such a pity. This is a rare delicacy. If I hadn't told the boss of Candy Duke to leave a kin for me each time, I wouldn't be able to snatch it away from those young people. Harry Potter is the savior, he defeated the Dark Lord, isn't he? After eating 2 piles of cockroaches, Dumbledore answered Ryan's question. What's more, Mr. Longbottom's appearance. People change. Mr. Longbottom has changed now. I will pay more attention. After all, this is not like you. Dumbledore glanced at Ryan suspiciously. He knew very well that Ryan was the kind of person who could not afford to be early without benefit. The sudden mention of Longbottom at this time must have something to do with it. Please take more care of Hermione in the future. But what does this have to do with Mr. Longbottom? In the second half of next year, the Ministry of Magic will propose the resumption of the Triwizard Tournament. Dumbledore was silent for a moment, then nodded and said, "Okay. If the Triwizard Tournament is really restarted next year, it means that Ryan has the gift of prophecy, and Longbottom really needs to pay attention to it." Dumbledore thought. And Ryan didn't lose anything at all. In the original book, Neville did kill Voldemort's last Horcrux.